That pension is family money. Brooke said it with her hand resting on the rent renewal, 2 fingers pinning the paper to my dining table as if it might escape. The increase was circled in blue ink. Beside it, in Brooke's narrow handwriting, she had written $1,200. My new share. Her fiancé, Marcus, stopped chewing. I could hear the old kitchen clock above the doorway and the faint click of Tom's dog tags shifting against the framed photograph on the buffet. I had hung them there after the funeral because putting them in a drawer felt worse. I looked at Brooke and wondered how a woman I had helped raise could know the exact date my pension arrived every month, but not what I had done to earn it. "Say that again," I said. She gave a short, irritated laugh. "Don't do the first sergeant voice, Lena. I'm sitting at my own table asking you a question." For a second, something uncertain moved across her face. Then she glanced at Marcus, remembered she had an audience, and lifted her chin. "I said Dad built this family. The money you have now is family money. You don't get to act like helping me is some personal favor." That was Sunday evening. By 8:15 the next morning, I would cancel the transfer that paid $900 of Brooke's rent every month. But at that moment, there were still 4 plates on the table, a pan of roasted potatoes cooling on the stove, and a lemon pie Brooke had brought from a bakery because she said homemade crust was too emotionally demanding. There was still a chance for one of us to make a joke, apologize, or pretend we had misunderstood the other. Marcus swallowed and reached for his water. Brooke mistook the movement for support. "I'm not trying to fight. I'm trying to make a practical decision. You've already made it," I said. "You wrote my amount down. The landlord made the decision. Rent went up. Your rent went up." "Our rent," she said. Marcus set his fork down. "Brooke." She turned on him. "What?" He tapped one finger beside the paper. "You told me the support amount was fixed." "It was. Now the rent's changing." "That isn't what fixed means." Brooke stared at him, betrayed by this sudden outbreak of arithmetic. I almost smiled. Tom would've. He liked Marcus, mostly because Marcus could puncture Brooke's logic without raising his voice. Tom used to say the man had the bedside manner of a pharmacist and the patience of a hostage negotiator. The thought of Tom pressed the air out of me. The dinner had been my idea. 18 months earlier, on that same date, Tom's oncologist had told us the cancer was back. I did not believe in honoring bad anniversaries, but my body apparently did. I had woken before dawn with my shoulders locked and spent the morning cleaning a house that was already clean. By noon, I had scrubbed the oven racks. At 1, I called Brooke and asked if she and Marcus wanted dinner. At 2, I bought enough food for 6 people. That was how grief worked on me. It turned me into a quartermaster for an army that wasn't coming. Brooke had arrived 20 minutes late carrying the pie and a bundle of grocery store daisies. She kissed my cheek, walked straight to the buffet, and adjusted Tom's photograph by half an inch. "Crooked," she said. It wasn't. It was spiritually crooked. She could still make me laugh. That was part of the problem. People like to imagine resentment arrives cleanly with a slammed door and one unforgivable sentence. Most of the time, it lives beside affection, borrowing its sweaters and eating from its plate. Before dinner, Brooke told a story about an event client who wanted 400 white roses on a Tuesday, with 6 days' notice. She did an imitation of the woman saying, "timeless but disruptive," and I laughed so hard I had to put down the serving spoon. Then between the chicken and the pie, she produced the renewal notice. The first increase was $150. The second came from Brooke. I turned the page over, though there was nothing on the back. "When does your lease end?" 6 weeks. "And you've looked at other places?" Her mouth tightened. "I've looked." That wasn't my question. Everything decent is expensive. Decent according to who? According to people who don't want to get murdered carrying in groceries. Marcus rubbed his eyebrow. The place on Willow wasn't dangerous. It had 1 closet. It had 3 closets. One was where the furnace lived. "I'm not storing coats with a flame." I looked at him. "What did the Willow place cost?" "Lena," Brooke said. $16.50, Marcus answered. Her current apartment would be $2,400 after the increase. She had rented it when she worked full-time for the Brantley Hotel, planning conferences and weddings and once, memorably, a regional convention for people who collected antique fishing lures. Then the hotel reorganized. Brooke lost her position 3 weeks before Tom's cancer returned. I had promised 6 months of help. The promise mattered to me. So did its terms. "I'll help you move," I said. "I still have the folding dolly in the garage. Marcus can borrow Tom's pickup if he's comfortable driving it." Brooke leaned back. "So that's your answer? You need a place you can afford. I can afford my place when clients pay on time." "No, you can afford it when I pay on time." Marcus stared at the table. Brooke folded her arms, and I saw the adult woman disappear behind the stubborn expression she had worn at 21 when she argued that overdraft fees were a conspiracy against optimistic people. "You said you'd help me get steady again. I did help. I'm not steady. Then we need a different plan." "I have a plan. You wrote it in blue ink." Her face reddened. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Make people sound stupid because they don't talk like a briefing memo." "I didn't write the number, Brooke." "No, you just sit there and interrogate everybody until they regret speaking." Marcus quietly moved his glass farther from her elbow. I had met Brooke when she was 19. Tom and I had been dating for 4 months when he invited me to dinner and neglected to mention his daughter was coming. I arrived at the restaurant in uniform because I had driven straight from Post. Brooke looked me up and down and said, "Oh, you're very Army." Tom nearly choked on an olive. I said, "You're very observant." She laughed before she could stop herself. That was our beginning. I never pretended to be her mother. She already had one, Denise, who lived 3 states away and loved Brooke intensely in bursts. I became the person who answered the phone at midnight, checked the oil before road trips, and mailed replacement chargers to hotel rooms. Tom gave affection like confetti. I gave it like sandbags. Mine wasn't pretty, but it held when the water came. Maybe that was why nobody noticed how much of it there was. Brooke unfolded her arms. Her voice softened, which was usually more dangerous than when it rose. "Dad wanted me taken care of. I know what your father wanted. Do you?" The question landed with enough force that Marcus looked up. I placed both hands flat on the table. "Be careful. I'm not saying you didn't love him. That is exactly what people say before they explain how you didn't love somebody correctly." She looked toward Tom's photograph. "He worried about me. He worried about everything. He once called me from the hardware store because he couldn't decide whether we were a warm white light bulb family." A reluctant smile touched Marcus's mouth. Brooke did not smile. "He told me I wouldn't have to worry about rent." "When?" "Before he died." I held still. Tom's last 2 months had been a patchwork of lucid conversations, medication fog, old westerns playing too loudly, and visitors leaving food we didn't want. Brooke often sat beside him while I slept in the recliner down the hall. I had never asked what he told her in those quiet hours. Some things belonged to a father and daughter, but money was not abstract just because a dying man mentioned it. "What exactly did he say?" I asked. Her eyes flickered. "He said you two would make sure I was okay. You two. You know what he meant. I know what the words mean." She pushed her chair back an inch. "This is unbelievable. You're receiving guaranteed money every month. You own this house. You work because you get bored. I'm trying to rebuild a career in an economy where people expect a full wedding for the cost of a nice brunch. I work because I like working. You don't need to. Neither did Tom, according to family history. Tom had apparently spent 16 years gently supporting his rigid military wife, who collected a retirement check for standing around in boots. The truth was less decorative. When Tom's contracting business nearly folded, my deployment pay covered the mortgage. When he developed neuropathy and could no longer climb ladders, my health insurance carried us through appointments that multiplied like weeds. When Brooke's car transmission failed, Tom told her, "We'll handle it," then looked at me across the kitchen with panic in his eyes. We handled it. I had let him use the plural because he was proud, and because marriage sometimes meant lending someone your strength without announcing who owned it. I had not realized the loan extended past his death. Brooke leaned forward again. Dad contributed to your life, Lena. He supported you through the Army years. Now you're acting like everything coming in belongs only to you. I heard myself ask, "Who told you he supported me?" She blinked. "He was your husband." That wasn't my question. Oh my God, this is what I mean. Why does everything have to be a deposition? It doesn't. Sometimes it can be a dinner where you ask me for $300 more and explain that my pension belongs to your father. I said family. No, you said Dad built this family. He did. The room went very quiet. Tom had built plenty. Decks, kitchen cabinets, a cedar chest with one drawer that stuck in humid weather. He had also built stories. In Tom's stories, everybody got to keep their dignity. A failed business became an early retirement. A bill I paid became something we managed. A promise he could not keep became something I would surely understand. I loved that kindness in him until I saw the invoice. Marcus cleared his throat. "I think we should go." Brooke turned to him. "You don't have to take her side. I'm not taking sides. I'm saying this isn't the conversation you said we were coming to have." I looked at him. "What conversation was that?" He hesitated. Brooke's expression changed. "Marcus." He met my eyes. She said Tom left money specifically to help with her housing, and you were managing it. For 1 second, nobody moved. The refrigerator motor kicked on. Somewhere outside, a motorcycle passed, loud and brief. I looked at Brooke. She focused on the blue circle around the new rent. "I never said there was a separate account," she muttered. "You let him believe there was. I said Dad arranged it. Dad asked me to help you for 6 months. Her head came up. He did not put an expiration date on making sure I was okay. I did. You never told me that. I told you when we started. I told you at 6 months. I told you again at 1 year. You knew I was grieving. So was I." The words came out before I could sand down the edge. Brooke's face shifted, not into guilt, but anger. Mine often did the same when guilt came too fast. She stood. "Fine. Sit down. No. You've made your position very clear. I don't believe I have." She grabbed the renewal paper. The corner caught beneath her plate, dragging it sideways. Marcus steadied the plate before it tipped. I folded my napkin and set it beside my fork. "My position is this," I said. "You have 6 weeks to find a place you can afford. I will help you pack. I will help you move. I will not pay another month of your rent." Her lips parted. Maybe she had expected negotiation. Maybe I had trained her to. Every boundary I moved in the past had taught her the next one was temporary. "You can't just stop," she said. "I can." "Because you're mad?" "Because I finally understand the arrangement." She waited for more. When it did not come, she picked up her purse. At the doorway, she glanced toward Tom's photograph. "Dad would be ashamed of you. There are sentences meant to communicate, and there are sentences meant to locate the softest part of another person and press." I knew the difference. Knowing did not make me bulletproof. Marcus apologized with his eyes before following her out. I stayed at the table until their car disappeared. Then I cleared 3 plates and left mine where it was. The lemon pie sat untouched in its white bakery box. I slept badly. At 8:12 the next morning, I made coffee, opened my banking app, and stared at the recurring transfer labeled Brooke Rent. My thumb hovered over the screen, then Tom's voice arrived in my memory, warm and certain. "We'll take care of it." I pressed cancel. The app asked if I was sure. This time, I was. The confirmation appeared in small gray letters. Recurring transfer canceled. No trumpet, no thunder, no picture of Brooke's apartment collapsing into the earth. Just 6 words and a blue button that said done. I pressed it, set the phone beside my coffee, and stood in the kitchen listening to the house. The dishwasher hummed. Rain ticked against the window over the sink. My plate from dinner was still on the table, a dried crescent of gravy at the edge. I had not left a dirty plate overnight in 27 years. I picked it up, rinsed it, and put it in the dishwasher. Then I took the lemon pie to work. The warehouse sat behind a shopping center and a tire store, in a beige industrial building designed to make people forget it existed. We supplied rehabilitation clinics, assisted living facilities, and home health agencies across 3 counties. Nothing glamorous passed through our loading bays: shower chairs, compression sleeves, glucose meters, disposable underpads. The ordinary equipment of people trying to remain independent. I liked the work because inventory did not care how you felt. 8 cartons were either on the shelf or they weren't. A purchase order either matched the delivery or it didn't. Human beings could turn a promise into fog. Numbers had the decency to stay where you put them. My supervisor, Naomi, was standing at the receiving station with a scanner in one hand and an expression that suggested the scanner had insulted her mother. "You bring pie?" she asked. "Lemon. Are you dying?" "No." "Did you kill somebody?" "No." She looked at the bakery box. "Then this is unusual. Take it before I change my mind." Naomi was 46, 6 feet tall, and wore earrings shaped like tiny office supplies. That day's pair were yellow binder clips. She opened the box, examined the untouched pie, and looked at me again. "This isn't break room pie," she said. "Break room pie has a missing piece and no explanation. This is emotional pie." "Put a sign on it." "What should it say?" "Contains dairy." She wrote, "Free, contains dairy and possibly spite" on a sticky note and attached it to the lid. By 9, I was in aisle 7 counting cases of sterile wound dressings because our system showed 12 more than we had. A new receiver named Calvin had entered individual boxes as cases on 2 deliveries. He was 31, recently divorced, and so eager to do well that he made mistakes at high speed. "I can fix it," he said for the 3rd time. "I know, I should have caught it." "Yes." He waited, perhaps expecting comfort. I handed him the scanner. "Now you will." That was as much comfort as I had available. My phone vibrated in my back pocket. Once, then again, then 4 times in a row. I finished recounting the shelf before I looked. Brooke had sent 7 messages. "Did you seriously cancel it already? The bank notification says the recurring payment was removed. You couldn't even wait 24 hours. Marcus thinks I misrepresented things to him now. I hope you're satisfied. Call me. Actually, don't. I have a client meeting." I read them twice, the first time as her stepmother, the second time as if they had been written by someone I managed. The second reading was easier. I typed, "I canceled the rent transfer as I said I would. I won't discuss this by text while you're working. We can talk tonight if we're both calm." 3 dots appeared immediately. They vanished. They returned. Her answer arrived. "You don't get to decide whether I'm calm enough to talk." I put the phone away. At 10:30, Calvin found me near the loading bay. "Do you have a second?" "Depends on the second." He held out the scanner. I corrected the unit counts, but the system won't let me close the discrepancy without a supervisor code. "You don't need my code, you need Naomi's. She told me to ask you. Then she's punishing both of us." He smiled cautiously. "Is that a joke?" "No. It was a joke. Tom used to accuse me of delivering humor in a body bag. I walked Calvin through the correction, then made him explain it back to me. Halfway through, he stopped rushing. By the end, he had identified another mistake nobody had noticed, a shipment assigned to the wrong facility. "There," I said. "Now you're useful." His shoulders lowered. "You know, most people would say good job. I'm not most people. I'm getting that." At lunch, Naomi sat across from me in the break room and ate the final slice of pie directly from the box. "You want to tell me who offended the dessert?" she asked. "No, excellent. I hate personal conversations." She took another bite and waited. My stepdaughter informed me that my military pension is family money. Naomi's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "Whose family?" "Apparently anybody with access to my dining table." "And the pie?" She brought it. Naomi slowly slid the box closer to herself. "Then this is evidence. She expects me to increase the amount I pay toward her rent. From what to what? 900 to 1200. Naomi lowered the fork. Monthly? No, every 12 years. You don't have to be sarcastic. I do today. She studied me. Naomi knew I helped Brooke, but I had never told her how much. Saying the number aloud made it sound different. $900 in my banking app had become a familiar line item, no more emotionally charged than the electric bill. $900 in Naomi's face looked like what it was. How long? She asked. 18 months. I thought that was supposed to be temporary. So did the calendar. Naomi folded the bakery lid down, then lifted it again and scraped a thread of filling from the cardboard. You cancel it? This morning. Good. The word irritated me. I leaned back. You don't know the whole situation. You just told me the relevant number. Her father asked me to help. Her father's dead. I stared at her. Naomi set down the fork. That sounded harsher outside my head. It usually does. I'm sorry. I looked toward the vending machines. One had displayed exact change only for so long that the label seemed like a philosophical position. Tom asked me while he was dying, I said. There are promises you make in that room that don't come with fine print. No, Naomi said. But there are promises people hear differently because they're dying too. I'm not dying. You know what I mean. I did, which was inconvenient. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a voice message from Brooke, 47 seconds long. I did not play it. Naomi wiped her fork clean with a paper napkin. You planning to spend the whole day pretending you're not waiting for her to apologize? I have cycle counts. That's a yes. At 5, the voice message was still unopened. I drove home in steady rain, passing the exit for Brooke's neighborhood without meaning to notice it. Her apartment was 12 minutes from my house, on the second floor of a converted textile mill with exposed brick, tall windows, and pipes painted black across the ceiling. The place photographed beautifully and heated like a train station. Tom loved it when she moved in. He stood in the middle of her living room, looked up at the old beams, and said, "This is solid construction." Brooke said, "Dad, it's a rental." He knocked on the wall anyway. He had helped her hang curtains, swearing at the masonry bits while I assembled a bookcase. Later, when the three of us ate pizza on the floor, he raised his paper cup and said, "To Brooke's fresh start." That had been 2 years before the layoff. Brooke had always liked fresh starts. It was the middle she struggled with. At home, I changed into old sweatpants, reheated potatoes and chicken, and finally played her message. Her voice was controlled at first. I want you to understand that this isn't just about an apartment. It's about the fact that Dad trusted you to look out for me. And the first time I said something you didn't like, you used money to punish me. A car horn sounded behind her. She must have recorded it while driving. You know I can't replace $900 in 6 weeks. You know my client work is unpredictable. So whatever language you use about boundaries or plans, the actual result is that I could lose my home. If that's what you want, congratulations. The message ended. I played it again. Not because it persuaded me, because Brooke sounded like she was trying not to cry, and I had spent 16 years responding to any crack in that voice. I opened our text thread. I typed, "I don't want you to lose your home." Deleted it. I typed, "I'm not punishing you." Deleted that too. Every answer felt like the first step back into a room I had just found the nerve to leave. Instead, I washed my dinner plate and made a list on the yellow legal pad I kept beside the phone. Rent, $900. Brooke phone, $84. Car insurance, $137. The phone line had been added when she lost her hotel job. The car insurance began after Tom got sick because Brooke missed a payment while helping with appointments. Each expense had a reason. None had an ending. I stared at the total. Tom used to laugh at my lists, but he relied on them. Before every trip, I wrote down confirmation numbers, addresses, departure times, emergency contacts, and the location of the nearest hospital. He would contribute sunglasses and a bag of beef jerky, then call us a good team. My phone rang. Doreen's name filled the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "What did you do to Brooke?" she asked. "No hello. No weather." That was one thing I respected about Tom's sister. Doreen never wasted ammunition on warning shots. I stopped paying her rent. You can't spring something like that on her. I've discussed it with her 3 times. She says, "You promised Tom." I promised to help her get steady. She is trying to get steady. Freelance work takes time. She's been offered full-time positions, not in her field. The hotel banquet position is exactly in her field. It pays less than she used to make. Less is more than nothing. Doreen exhaled into the phone. I pictured her in her spotless condo, standing beneath the framed sign that said, "Family is everything." Doreen owned 6 decorative pillows and trusted none of them enough to lean against. "This isn't like you," she said. "It was the gentleness that warned me." What isn't? Cutting somebody off over one disrespectful comment. This isn't about one comment. Then what is it about? I looked at the legal pad. Beneath the numbers, without thinking, I had written Tom's name. It's about an arrangement that should have ended a year ago. Brooke lost her father. So did I. You didn't lose him the same way. There it was again. The quiet ranking of grief, with Brooke automatically promoted above me. Doreen softened her voice further. Tom spent his whole life making sure the people he loved were provided for. You know that. I closed my eyes. What do you think a military pension is, Doreen? She paused. I know what it is. Then tell me. Oh, for heaven's sake. I know you earned it, but Tom supported you through all those Army years. Marriage is a partnership. You always said that. For a moment, I considered correcting her. I considered telling her exactly who had supported whom, which years, which bills, which humiliations Tom had asked me to keep private. But Tom was still dead, and I was still trained to protect the position even after everyone else had withdrawn. I'm not paying the rent, I said. Doreen's disappointment became audible. Then don't expect Brooke to pretend this doesn't change things. After she hung up, I sat with the phone in my hand. A message from Brooke appeared before the screen went dark. I told Aunt Doreen everything. I looked down at the list, drew a line through Tom's name, and wrote 2 new words beneath it. 60 days. 60 days was generous. That was what I told myself while I drafted the email. Brooke, beginning September 1st, you will need to arrange your own phone service and car insurance. I will keep both active through August 31st so you have time to transfer the number and obtain coverage. This is separate from the rent decision. I am willing to help you compare plans if you ask. Lene read it 4 times. It sounded cold. I added, I love you. Then I deleted it because placing love after a cancellation notice made it look like fine print. I added, this does not mean I don't care what happens to you. Deleted that too. I sent the original version at 7:06 in the morning and immediately walked outside to pull weeds along the driveway. The weeds were innocent, but they were available. My phone rang inside the house. It stopped, then rang again. I stayed on my knees beside the flower bed, yanking crabgrass until a shadow crossed the pavement. My neighbor, Arthur, stood at the end of my driveway holding a newspaper under one arm. He had retired from teaching high school chemistry and still dressed as though a principal might inspect him. Khaki pants, belt, tucked shirt, even on Saturdays. You're gardening with unusual hostility, he said. Deep roots, those are annuals. I sat back on my heels. You monitoring my vegetation now? Only the violent incidents. Arthur glanced toward my front door as the phone began ringing for a 3rd time. You expecting an emergency? No. Then somebody else thinks you are. The ringing stopped. Arthur nodded toward the flower bed. Tom planted those salvia. I know. He planted some at my place, too. Called them low maintenance. They've required constant attention. That sounds like Tom. Arthur smiled and continued down the sidewalk. He had known Tom longer than I had, but never acted as if that gave him seniority over my grief. I appreciated him for it, though I had never said so. When I went inside, I had 4 missed calls and a message from Brooke. You are canceling my insurance too? What is wrong with you? Another arrived while I was reading. And my phone? Are you trying to make it impossible for me to work? I poured the cold coffee out of my mug and made a fresh cup. Your number can be transferred to your own account, I wrote. You have 60 days. Your coverage will remain active during that time. She called before I could put the phone down. What are you doing? She demanded. Good morning. No, seriously. What is this? A deadline. You told Aunt Doreen this was only about rent. I told Doreen I wasn't paying your rent. We didn't discuss your phone because you knew how it would sound. It sounds like a 35-year-old woman taking over her own bills. There was silence, then a sharp laugh. Okay? Wow. I rubbed a thumb along the handle of my mug. Tom bought it at a roadside gift shop in Tennessee. World's most tolerant wife, it said. The words had faded until only tolerant remained readable. You have time to make arrangements, I said. That's not the point. What is? The point is you're retaliating. No, retaliation would be canceling them today. You want credit for not leaving me uninsured? I want you to take responsibility for your own expenses. Because I said something you didn't like. Because I finally wrote down everything I pay for. Her breath caught slightly. I knew that sound. Brooke had not known about the car insurance. Dad paid that, she said. No. He told me he was handling it. He asked me to put it on our policy. So your policy. Both of yours. Tom hasn't paid an insurance bill in 18 months. Why are you saying it like that? Like what? Like he's some deadbeat who left you with a burden. The cruelty of the accusation was that it used my own loyalty against me. If I explained how often Tom had promised money he did not have, I dishonored him. If I stayed quiet, his promises remained my obligations. I didn't call him a deadbeat. You didn't have to. I looked out the window. A clump of uprooted crabgrass lay in the driveway, dirt exposed around its white roots. Brooke, I'm not arguing about your father. That's convenient. No. Convenient was paying the bill and never asking you to think about it. She went silent again. I expected anger. Instead, when she spoke, her voice was lower. I helped you with Dad. The sentence changed the shape of the conversation. Yes, I said. You did. I drove him to appointments when you worked. I stayed with him so you could sleep. I cleaned that bathroom after he got sick because you couldn't even walk in there. I remember. You act like everything only happened to you. I don't. You do. You act like you were the one holding the whole world together, and the rest of us were extra weight. That one found its mark because there had been nights when I felt exactly that way. There were also nights when Brooke sat on the bathroom floor with Tom while he shook, telling him a rambling story about a disastrous bridal shower until he could breathe normally again. She had learned how to flush his medication port. She kept ginger candy in every purse. Love did not make her financially responsible. Financial irresponsibility did not mean she had not loved her father. I know what you did for him, I said. Then why does it feel like you're erasing me? I could ask you the same question. Neither of us spoke. A lawnmower started 2 houses down. The ordinary sound irritated me. People should have had the courtesy to suspend yard work when families were breaking apart. Brooke exhaled. I have to go. Where? Why? So you can decide whether it's real work? The call ended. I stood at the counter until the coffee went cold again. At 11, I took Tom's pickup to the gas station. I drove it once a week because leaving machinery idle was how seals dried and batteries died. That was the practical explanation. The less practical one was that the cab still smelled faintly of cedar shavings and the wintergreen mints Tom kept in the center console. At the pump, I found an old receipt tucked beside the driver's seat. Gas, $28. Beef jerky, $6. Lottery ticket, $2. Tom had bought lottery tickets twice a year and spent the drive home planning how to give the money away. Brooke would get a house. Doreen would get her condo paid off. Arthur would get a laboratory named after him, though none of us could determine who would want a laboratory named after Arthur. What would I get? I once asked. Tom looked offended. You'd get me without financial anxiety. So nothing new. He laughed until he missed our turn. I folded the receipt and put it back where I found it. When I returned home, a gray sedan was parked at the curb. Marcus stood on the porch, hands in his pockets, wearing jeans and a blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled evenly to his elbows. I left the truck in the driveway and walked toward him. Is Brooke all right? She's fine. Angry, but fine. Does she know you're here? His hesitation answered. I unlocked the door but did not invite him in. That puts me in a bad position. I know. I'm sorry. Then why are you doing it? Because I need to ask you something, and if I ask in front of her, she'll answer for you. He did not sound angry. That made me more cautious. What, was there ever money from Tom specifically for her rent? No. Marcus looked toward the street. His jaw worked once. Did he leave her anything? Personal belongings and a small beneficiary payment from an old life insurance policy. She received it directly. The estate was settled. How small? That's Brooke's business. He nodded. I watched him absorb both the answer and the boundary. She made it sound like you were administering something long-term, he said. I was paying $900 a month from my checking account. And the phone and insurance? Also mine. He closed his eyes briefly. Jesus, don't use me to build a case against her. His eyes opened. I'm not. You came to my house without telling her, because we're supposed to sign a lease together next week. That was new. On her current apartment? He nodded. She wanted my name added when she renews. She said the housing money would continue and we'd divide the balance. I stared at him. Were you planning to contribute? Of course. Then why does she need $1,200 from me? Because she budgeted for wedding deposits. A dry, humorless sound escaped me. Marcus shifted his weight. That's not the whole reason. What's the rest? He looked past me through the open doorway toward the buffet where Tom's photograph stood. She doesn't want to leave that apartment, he said. It's the last place Tom helped her set up. She talks about moving, then finds something wrong with every place. No light. Bad parking, not enough storage. But I think she feels like if she leaves, she's leaving the last version of her life where he could still walk through the door. The observation was so gentle, it made me dislike him for a second. Then I remembered Tom standing beneath those black pipes knocking on brick, announcing that the building was solid. I understand, I said. Marcus waited. Understanding doesn't make the rent affordable. I know. Do you? He met my eyes. I'm not asking you to resume the payments. Good. I'm asking whether this is final before I decide what I'm signing. It's final. He nodded once. I stepped onto the porch and pulled the door shut behind me. You need to tell her you came here. I will. Today. I said I will. And don't repeat what I told you about the estate. If she wants to discuss her finances with you, she can. A trace of irritation crossed his face. You know, she's right about one thing. What's that? You do talk to people like they work for you. You're standing on my porch gathering intelligence before signing a contract. That isn't what I'm doing. It's exactly what you're doing. I don't blame you. But call it what it is. For a moment, I thought he might leave angry. Instead, he gave a reluctant half smile. She said you'd do this. Do what? Make me feel 12 years old without raising your voice. You're not 12. No, I'm 38, which is old enough to know better than to agree to a joint lease without seeing the numbers. That surprised me. Tell her, I repeated. I will. He walked to his car, then stopped at the curb. For what it's worth, I don't think she wants your money more than she wants you. The sentence was kind. It was also the kind of kindness that asked me to make the next sacrifice. Then she can prove it, I said. Marcus drove away. Brooke arrived 40 minutes later. She did not knock. She still had a key, and the deadbolt snapped back while I was in the laundry room folding towels. Did Marcus come here? She called. I walked into the hall carrying a stack of washcloths. Her cheeks were flushed, and her purse hung open from one shoulder. Yes. What did you tell him? The truth. Which version? There's only one. She laughed, but nothing in her face moved with it. "You're taking everything away at once," she said. "The apartment, my insurance, my phone, and now my relationship. I didn't send Marcus here. But you talked to him. He asked whether there was a fund. I said no." Her eyes filled. She blinked hard, furious at the tears before they could fall. "You could have let me explain. You had 18 months. She took her house key off the ring with such force that she tore a fingernail. The small brass key struck the entry table and spun beside Tom's photograph. "There," she said. "Now you can add access to the list of things you've canceled." She turned and pulled the door open. "Brooke." For half a second, she stopped. I wanted to say I had not asked for the key. I wanted to say she could keep it, that this was still her father's house, that I was still here. Instead, I looked at the blood gathering along her torn nail. "There are bandages in the kitchen drawer," I said. Her face crumpled with disbelief. Then she left, slamming the door hard enough to tilt Tom's photograph spiritually crooked. I straightened the photograph, then moved the key to the ceramic bowl where Tom used to drop loose change. The bowl still held 3 quarters, a Canadian dime, 2 screws, and a plastic bread clip. Tom believed horizontal surfaces existed to receive whatever was in his pockets. I used to follow him through the house, returning objects to their proper locations. After he died, I left the bowl untouched. The key looked wrong inside it. I carried the washcloths upstairs and put them away. When I came back down, I checked the porch through the narrow window beside the door, though I had heard Brooke's car leave. There was no blood on the floor. That was what I noticed. No blood, no broken glass, no overturned furniture, nothing that matched the size of what had happened. Brooke did not contact me again that weekend. Marcus sent one message Sunday morning. I told her I came by. "I'm sorry for putting you in the middle." I answered, "You didn't put me there." He did not reply. At work Monday, I found Naomi in my office chair eating almonds from a plastic container. "You have an office," I said. "Mine has people looking for me. So does this one." "Nobody looks for you unless something is wrong. That's efficient." She stood but took the almonds with her. "Calvin mislabeled the orthopedic cushions." "How?" "He used lumbar and coccyx interchangeably. They're not interchangeable, I'm aware. My body contains both." We found Calvin in aisle 4 staring at 2 nearly identical cartons as if waiting for one to confess. I explained the difference. He listened, asked 3 good questions, and relabeled the shelf without defending himself. As we walked away, Naomi said, "He's learning. He's still too fast. You like him. I like competent people. You like making people competent. That sounds exhausting. It is. That's why you're always mad." I stopped beside a pallet of folding walkers. "I'm not always mad." Naomi popped an almond into her mouth. "What?" I didn't say anything. "You made a face. This is my face." Her earrings were tiny red staplers. At lunch, I checked my phone and found that Doreen had added me to a group conversation called Tom's Day. The title made it sound like a sales event. There were 11 messages. Doreen wanted to have dinner on the anniversary of Tom's death 6 weeks from Thursday. She suggested Bellini's, an Italian restaurant Tom liked because the portions offended him personally. "Nobody needs this much lasagna," he would say while eating all of it. Brooke had already replied, "Bellini's is fine." Dad loved it. Doreen, "Private room?" Brooke, "Definitely. I don't want strangers next to us." Doreen, "Minimum is probably high." Brooke, "Lena can ask. They know her. They did not know me." A waiter had once remembered that I disliked ice in my water. That was not a relationship. Doreen's cousin Paul suggested a barbecue place. Brooke answered that barbecue felt too casual. Somebody named Janice, whom I had met twice, posted a dove emoji. Doreen asked me directly whether I could call Bellini's. I placed the phone face down. Naomi sat across from me with a container of soup. "Family? How can you tell? You look like someone mailed you a raccoon. They're planning a memorial dinner for Tom." "That seems normal. I've been assigned the restaurant." "That also seems normal." "I'm not doing it." Naomi blew across her spoon. "That seems new." I looked at the phone again. Brooke's name sat above the words Lena can ask. 36 hours earlier, she had returned her key. Now I was useful enough to negotiate a private room. I typed, "If Bellini's is what everyone wants, someone should contact them soon. I won't be handling the reservation." Doreen responded first. "Is that necessary?" Brooke followed. "Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it." The plural had apparently survived Tom. I muted the conversation and returned to work. Doreen came to my house that evening carrying a glass casserole dish with a blue lid. It belonged to me. She had borrowed it after Tom's funeral and kept it long enough to qualify for adverse possession. "I've been meaning to return this," she said. "For 18 months? I don't like driving at night. It's 6:30, which is nearly night in winter. It's August." She handed me the dish and walked inside before I invited her. Doreen was 63 and shaped like Tom around the eyes, though she had his features arranged into permanent suspicion. She wore white pants in weather that threatened rain and carried a handbag large enough to contain emergency shelter. Her gaze went to the entry table. "Brooke gave her key back?" "Yes. She told me you made her. I didn't ask for it." Doreen touched the key with one finger but left it in the bowl. "She's very hurt. So am I. You hide it better. That doesn't make it smaller." Doreen sighed and walked into the living room. She sat in Tom's recliner without hesitation. Nobody else did. Arthur once lowered himself into it, realized where he was, and stood so quickly he nearly spilled his coffee. Doreen settled in and placed her handbag on her lap. "Bellini's needs a $900 deposit for the private room." The number was so exact I almost laughed. "I'm sure they'll accept a card. Brooke's cards are nearly maxed. Then Bellini's is outside her budget. It isn't for Brooke, it's for Tom. Tom won't be eating." Doreen flinched. "You don't have to be crude. I'm being accurate. This is what she means. You've turned hard." I sat on the couch opposite her. Tom's chair gave a faint leather squeak when Doreen shifted. "Did you come to return a casserole dish or collect a deposit?" Both can be true, so can caring about Tom and not renting a private dining room. "It's the first anniversary. I know what anniversary it is." Doreen's mouth thinned. "Then why are you acting like this is some random dinner?" Because I had spent the last year honoring Tom every morning. I honored him when I woke on my side of the bed. I honored him when I changed the furnace filter because he used to write the date on the cardboard edge. I honored him when I found a pencil sharpened with his pocket knife. I did not say any of that. Grief sounded cheap when you presented receipts. "I'm not paying the deposit," I said. "Nobody said you had to pay all of it. You just said Brooke can't." Paul offered $100. "Janice will contribute. I can put in $200. That's $400. You could cover the rest." Could and will are different words. Doreen set her handbag on the floor. That meant she intended to stay. "Lena, you have always handled these things." "What things?" "Reservations, travel, family arrangements." "Because nobody else did. Because you're good at it." There was the compliment people gave when they wanted unpaid labor. "I'm retired," I said, "from the Army, not from caring. Do you hear yourself? I hear a family trying to honor your husband, my husband, not just your brother, not just Brooke's father. We know that." "Do you?" Doreen looked away. Her eyes landed on a wooden bowl Tom had turned on a borrowed lathe. The rim was uneven, but he had sanded it until it felt like satin. "He wouldn't like this," she said quietly. "No. Tom hated when people he loved were upset with each other. Then fix it." The answer came so naturally that she did not recognize what she had asked. "Why me?" "Because you can. Brooke can apologize. For one comment? For lying to Marcus. For treating my income like something her father left behind. For telling you I cut her off without warning. She's scared. So was Tom when his business failed. So was I every time I got orders and didn't know what I'd come home to. Fear doesn't make facts optional." Doreen leaned forward. "She thinks you're trying to erase him. I stopped paying rent. I didn't burn his photographs. She connects the support to him. I know. I knew it more clearly after Marcus described the apartment. That did not mean I could preserve Brooke's grief at $900 a month. Doreen picked up her handbag. "Please don't make me choose sides," she said. "I didn't ask you to come here. That isn't fair." "No, it isn't. You arrived on a Monday with my casserole dish and asked me for $500. I asked you to be part of the dinner. You asked me to fund it." She stood. "You're welcome to come." The phrasing stayed with me. Not needed, not wanted, welcome. At the door, I handed her the blue-lidded dish. "This is yours," she said. "You'll need it for leftovers." Doreen stared at me, then took it. After she left, I opened the family conversation. There were 23 new messages. The dinner had become a campaign. Brooke proposed a fixed menu with chicken, salmon, and lasagna. Paul objected to salmon. Janice posted another dove. Doreen said she would speak to Bellini's about lowering the minimum. Then Brooke wrote, "I don't think Lena should be involved in planning right now. Everything turns into a money argument." Doreen answered, "She was married to him." Brooke, "And she has made it clear how she feels about his family." Paul, "Maybe take this offline." Brooke, "Fine." A minute later, the conversation disappeared from my screen. I refreshed the app. Nothing. I searched the title. Nothing. Brooke had removed me. I stood alone in the kitchen, holding my phone. The lemon pie's empty bakery box was still in the recycling bin, its clear plastic window smeared with filling. At 8:40 the next morning, Bellini's called while I was reviewing a shortage report. A cheerful woman named Sylvia said she understood I would be providing the deposit for the Mercer Memorial dinner. "No," I said. "You understand incorrectly." There was a pause. "I'm sorry. I have your name and number here as the financial contact. Remove both." "Of course. Would you like me to contact Brooke Mercer?" "Yes." Sylvia hesitated. "Without a deposit, we can only hold the room through tomorrow." "Then tell her that too." I ended the call and looked through the glass wall of my office. Calvin was using the scanner slowly, checking each label before moving to the next shelf. My phone buzzed. Brooke had sent a screenshot of the restaurant's deposit policy. "You couldn't do this one thing for Dad?" I studied the message until the words blurred. Then I typed, "If the dinner is for family, family can pay for it." I pressed send before I could make it gentler. Brooke answered with one word, "Cruel." I did not respond. At noon, Naomi came into my office and shut the door. She never shut doors. She considered privacy an inefficient use of hinges. "Your shortage report says we're missing 48 shower benches," she said. "We are." "No, we're missing 4. I turned the monitor toward me. I had multiplied by the case quantity twice. "I'll correct it." Naomi remained standing. "What? You don't make that mistake." "I just did. Are you sick?" "No. Did you sleep?" "Enough. That isn't a number. I'm not operating heavy equipment. You drove here." I corrected the report while she watched. Irritation crawled over my skin, not at her, at the fact that she had noticed. "There," I said. She opened the door, then paused. "You know, competence is not a blood oath." "What does that mean?" "It means you're allowed one bad report without surrendering your sword. I don't have a sword. You have the emotional equivalent in your desk somewhere." She left before I could answer. The next 3 days passed without contact from Brooke. Doreen did not call. The family conversation remained gone from my phone, though twice I opened the app and searched for it as if removal might expire. On Friday morning, my banking app sent the usual alert that my pension deposit had posted. Below it, the space where Brooke's transfer normally appeared remained blank. The number in my account looked too large by $900. That was absurd. I had spent years watching balances rise and fall without attaching morality to them. Money was fuel. You assigned it a purpose, tracked its movement, and did not confuse it with affection. Still, I stared at those extra digits until the coffee maker beeped behind me. At 8:03, Brooke called. I answered on the second ring. My rent drafts today, she said. I know. I need you to send the transfer. No, I thought you meant you weren't paying toward the renewal. I said I would not pay another month. You can't change an arrangement 4 days before rent is due. I gave you 6 weeks before the lease ends. You've known for 18 months that the support was temporary. My checking account is short. Then call your landlord before the draft hits. What am I supposed to say? My stepmother decided to teach me a lesson? Say you need to split the payment. You know they charge a fee for that. Then pay the fee. Her breath sharpened. It's $75. I believe you. You'd rather see me waste $75 than help me. I'd rather see you handle the consequence of a bill you knew was coming. You've become so mean. I looked at the mug in my hand. Tolerant. Have you accepted the banquet job? They haven't formally offered it. Have you told them you're interested? I have a second interview Tuesday. That surprised me. Good, I said. Don't. Don't what? Act proud of me right after refusing to help. I can do both. Well, I can't. She disconnected. I logged out of the banking app and left for work. At the first traffic light, I nearly turned toward her apartment. The impulse was physical, like forgetting a step at the bottom of a staircase. My hands tightened on the wheel. I could picture the route, the bank branch near the mill, the relief in Brooke's voice if I called and said I had reconsidered. I could also picture next month. The light changed. The driver behind me tapped his horn. I went straight. That afternoon, Brooke sent a screenshot showing a partial rent payment and a $75 fee. She had moved money from savings to cover the balance. I almost typed, "You had savings." Instead, I put the phone in my desk drawer. On Saturday, she asked to come for some of Tom's belongings. Not asked, exactly. Doreen and I will be there at 2 to collect Dad's personal things. I replied, "Send me a list first. They're his things." I shouldn't need an inventory request. I typed, "Send me a list." 20 minutes later, she sent 8 items. Tom's silver watch, his leather jacket, the fly rod he kept in the garage, a collection of vinyl records, the cedar chest from the guest room, his toolboxes, the wooden bowl from the living room, and his recliner. I read the list twice. The watch was hers. Tom had told both of us he wanted Brooke to have it. The leather jacket was too small for me and too sentimental for a donation pile. The fly rod made sense. They had taken fishing trips when she was in college, though Brooke hated touching bait. The rest was not a list of personal things. It was a sweep. I answered, "You can take the watch, jacket, fly rod, and records. The other items stay here." Her response came immediately. Why? Because they belong in my home. The cedar chest is family. So is the bowl. I stared at that sentence and wondered if objects became family money once they lacked a bank account. At 2, Brooke rang the doorbell. The sound felt formal after 16 years of her letting herself in. Doreen stood behind her holding flattened cardboard boxes. Brooke wore black leggings and an oversized sweatshirt despite the heat. Her torn fingernail had been wrapped in a beige bandage. I opened the door. "You didn't have to ring," I said before remembering the key in the bowl. Brooke glanced toward it. Apparently I did. Doreen lifted the boxes. "Can we not start?" "No one has started anything," I said. That sentence usually means something has started. I let them in. I had placed the watch, jacket, and records on the dining table. The watch sat in its original box, a dark blue square with a worn velvet lining. Tom wore it every day until his wrists became too thin and the face looked oversized against his skin. He gave it to me one morning and said, "Keep this safe for Brooke. Not give this to Brooke now. Keep it safe." I had done that. Brooke opened the box and ran her thumb over the metal band. "You had this the whole time? Where did you think it was?" "I didn't know. You never offered it. You never asked." Her eyes lifted to mine. I shouldn't have to ask for everything. Doreen unfolded a box with unnecessary force. "The records can go in here. There were 32 albums." Tom's taste wandered from Otis Redding to Willie Nelson to a single electronic record he bought because a clerk told him it was important. He played half of it, said importance was exhausting, and never touched it again. Brooke picked up that album and smiled despite herself. Remember this, he made it 11 minutes. 8. I timed him. He said it sounded like a washing machine arguing with a fax. She laughed. For one warm second, the three of us stood in the dining room together, looking at Tom's ridiculous purchase. Then Brooke saw the restaurant flyer beneath a pile of mail on the buffet, and her smile disappeared. Bellini's canceled the room, she said. I heard. How? Sylvia called me for money. Doreen pressed the box flaps together. We found another place. Where? Carmine's, she said. They don't require a private room deposit if we guarantee 15 meals. Tom disliked Carmine's. Their red sauce was sweet, and the owner put parsley on everything. I did not say so. Brooke placed the album in the box. You don't care where it is. I wasn't invited to plan it. You were included until you made every conversation hostile. I sent one message. Exactly. You never discuss anything. You issue decisions. Doreen stepped between us carrying the record box. Fly rod? I led them through the kitchen into the garage. Tom's tools occupied a long workbench against the back wall. Pegboard hooks held wrenches, squares, clamps, and 2 hammers with worn wooden handles. After his hands started trembling, he labeled drawers in thick black marker because he kept forgetting where he put things. Screws, tape, bits, misc, which contained everything from picture wire to an expired coupon for pancakes. The fly rod hung above the side door in a canvas case. Brooke took it down and held it across both palms. He wanted to go back to Mill Creek, she said. I know. He kept saying when he got stronger. I know. She lowered the case. You don't have to say it like that. Like what? Like you know every version of him better than I did. I looked at her. I'm answering you. No, you're closing the subject. Doreen busied herself examining a jar of nails. Brooke set the fly rod beside the record box and walked to the workbench. She lifted Tom's cordless drill. I'm taking this. No, he taught me to use it. He taught half the neighborhood to use it. It stays. You don't even build anything. I use a drill. For what? Things requiring holes. Her grip tightened around the handle. That's a compelling family history, she said. It belongs to the house. Everything belongs to you if it's inside this house. That is generally how ownership works. Doreen turned. Lena? What? You know what she means. Yes. That's why I answered clearly. Brooke placed the drill on the bench harder than necessary. Marcus won't sign the renewal, she said. The shift was so abrupt I needed a second. I'm sorry. No, you're not. I'm sorry you're having trouble. He says we need to resolve our financial expectations before we live together. That sounds reasonable. There it is. What? That little note of approval. You got what you wanted. I didn't know you planned to put him on the lease until he told me. You made sure he knew I was a liar. You lied. I simplified. You invented a fund. I said Dad arranged for support. He asked me to help temporarily because he knew you could afford it. The garage became very still. Doreen looked down at the jar in her hands. Brooke's eyes were bright, but her voice stayed sharp. You keep acting like he stole something from you by expecting you to care about me, he asked. I agreed. And now you regret it. I regret that you turned a gift into an entitlement. She flinched. Good discipline is knowing when you have struck hard enough. Anger makes you want to strike again. I picked up the fly rod and carried it to her. This is yours. She took it, but would not look at me. Doreen loaded the records into her car while Brooke carried out the jacket and watch. Before closing the trunk, Brooke held the watch box against her stomach and glanced back at the garage. What about the cedar chest? It stays. Dad built it. For me. He built everything for everybody. No. Sometimes he built something for his wife. Her mouth twisted. Must be nice, she said, to be the only person whose grief still counts as ownership. She got into Doreen's car. I watched them drive away with the watch, the leather jacket, the records, and the fly rod. 4 things I had agreed belonged to Brooke. 4 spaces left empty inside my house. When I returned to the garage, the drill sat crooked on the workbench. I straightened it, closed Tom's labeled drawers one by one, and stopped at the last, miscellaneous. Inside, beneath the pancake coupon and a roll of wire, I found a wintergreen mint. I unwrapped it and put it in my mouth. It had gone soft with age, but it still tasted exactly the same. The mint dissolved into grit before I admitted it was terrible. I spat the last piece into a paper towel and laughed alone in the garage. Tom would have eaten it. He believed expiration dates were suggestions written by cowards. On Monday, the phone company emailed me a transfer request for Brooke's number. It arrived at 9:14. I was reviewing a purchase order and saw her name in the subject line. For several seconds, I simply looked at it. She had done what I asked. That should have felt like progress. Instead, it felt like finding an empty hook where a coat had always hung. The transfer required both account holders to appear at a store or complete a verification call together. Brooke had selected a store halfway between her apartment and the warehouse and scheduled an appointment for Thursday at 6. No message, no question whether I was available. I accepted the appointment. Thursday evening, I arrived 9 minutes early. Brooke was already seated on a low bench near a display of phone cases. She wore navy slacks, a cream blouse, and the silver watch she had taken from my house. Tom's watch hung loose on her wrist. "You need a link removed," I said. She looked down. "I know. If it slides over your hand, you could lose it." I said, "I know." The store employee, a cheerful man named Gavin, called us to a counter surrounded by posters of people smiling at devices. He asked how our evening was going. "Productive," I said. Brooke said, "Fine." Gavin's smile became more professional. He explained the transfer, verified my identification, and told Brooke she could keep her number. Then he presented 3 plans. The cheapest was $48 a month if she enabled automatic payments. The most expensive was $85 and included international data she did not need. Brooke pointed at the middle plan. "The basic one should cover you," I said. She turned her head slowly. "I'm capable of choosing a phone plan." "I know." "Then let me." I stepped back from the counter. Gavin became intensely interested in his keyboard. Brooke selected the middle plan at $62, then learned taxes, and fees would bring it to $71. Her mouth tightened. "Would you like device protection?" Gavin asked. "How much?" $14.99 a month. "What does it cover?" He explained theft, damage, loss, and screen repair. Brooke listened as though he were negotiating a treaty. "Do I have protection now?" she asked me. "No, you never added it? You told me it was a waste of money." "When? Last year. I don't remember that." "I do." She declined the protection. Gavin printed a summary and slid it across the counter. Brooke stared at the first payment total. "Why is it $111? "Activation fee," he said. "Nobody activated anything. The phone is already active. It's technically a new account." "That's ridiculous." "I agree," I said. She looked at me, surprised. Gavin looked relieved that somebody else had become the enemy. Brooke paid the fee with a credit card. When the receipt printed, she folded it twice and pushed it into her purse. "All set," Gavin said. "Your number will leave Ms. Mercer's account at midnight." Leave. An unnecessarily emotional verb for a billing change. Outside, the air smelled like hot asphalt and approaching rain. Brooke walked toward her car. I followed because our vehicles were parked in the same row, not because I had decided to continue the conversation. "Congratulations on getting it handled," I said. She stopped beside her driver's door. "You really can't help yourself." "What did I do?" "You sound like I passed an inspection." "I meant it sincerely." "That's worse." I looked at the watch again. "The jewelry shop near Oak Street can size that while you wait. I'll take care of it." "Fine." She opened her car door, then closed it without getting in. I got the banquet job. I kept my face still. "When do you start?" "Monday." "Full time?" "Yes." "Benefits?" "After 90 days." I nodded. "That's good. You can say you were right." "I wasn't going to." "You're thinking it." "I'm thinking you'll do well." Her expression changed just slightly. Brooke was good at events. She could remember 20 names after one meeting, settle a furious caterer with a compliment, and make a conference room feel intentional using fabric and battery-powered candles. Her problem was not competence. It was that competence bored her when it stopped attracting applause. "The salary is $14,000 less than I made before," she said. "That hurts, and the schedule includes weekends. I remember hotel work. Marcus thinks I should take it. Do you?" She leaned against the car. "I think I need the money." That wasn't my question. That. What? You always want everything to be some pure decision. Maybe I don't want the job. Maybe I'm taking it because I don't have a choice. Most work happens for that reason. You loved the Army. I loved parts of it. You stayed 24 years. That doesn't mean I woke every morning singing the national anthem. Despite herself, Brooke smiled. It disappeared quickly, but I saw it. "There were days I hated it," I said. "There were years I considered leaving. I stayed because the reasons to stay outweighed the reasons to go, and now you get a check forever." There was no accusation in her voice that time, only tiredness. "I paid into a system with time," I said. "The check is the part you can see." She crossed her arms. "I know you served. Knowing and understanding are different. Do you understand my job? Not entirely. Then why do you get to judge what work I accept?" "I don't. You told me about the position. Because you pushed me toward it. I suggested steady income. You made steady income an emergency." "No. Your expenses did." She looked away toward the store windows where our reflections stood side by side beneath a glowing advertisement. "I paid the late rent," she said. "I saw the screenshot. You didn't even acknowledge it. I thought you sent it to prove the fee. I sent it so you'd know I handled it." My first instinct was to tell her she should not require praise for paying her own rent. The sentence formed cleanly in my mind. I let it pass. "You did handle it," I said. She nodded once, still looking away. The pause between us felt almost peaceful. Then her phone buzzed. She checked it and turned the screen face down in her hand. "Marcus?" I asked. "You don't get to ask about him." "All right, he's staying at his brother's." I waited. "He says he needs space to think before we sign anything together." "I'm sorry." "He also thinks we should postpone setting a wedding date." That hurt her. I could hear it beneath the flat delivery. "I didn't tell him to do that. You didn't have to. He asked me whether the rent money came from a fund, and you could have said, 'Brooke and I had a misunderstanding.'" That would have been a lie. You love technical truth when it costs somebody else. I took that in. A car passed behind us, music vibrating through its closed windows. "Do you know why I let your father say, 'we'?" I asked. Her eyes narrowed. "What?" "When bills came up. When he promised something. Do you know why I didn't correct him? Because you were married. Because he was ashamed. The word escaped before I decided to release it." Brooke straightened. "Ashamed of what?" I looked at her and saw Tom's eyes, the same hazel color turning green near the center. "Ask Doreen what happened to his contracting business. I know what happened. He retired." "No. He closed it because it was failing. That's not how he told it." "I know." Her face hardened as if I had insulted him. Maybe I had. "So now that he's dead, you're going to rewrite his life?" "I'm telling you one fact. Conveniently, a fact that makes you the hero." "I'm not a hero in that story. I'm the person who paid the mortgage." She stared at me. I had protected Tom's pride for so long that saying the truth felt indecent, like opening his bathrobe in public. Brooke reached for her door handle. "Doreen wants you at the dinner," she said. The change of subject was a door slammed from the inside. "Does she?" "She says you have a right to be there." "What do you say?" "I say you've made it clear you don't want to participate. I said I wouldn't pay. To you, those are different." "Yes. To everyone else, refusing to help with Dad's memorial looks like refusing to be part of it. I cared for him through 12 months of treatment. I don't need to purchase admission to a dinner." She flinched. "The dinner is at Carmine's at 6, she said. "Come if you want. Don't make a scene." I almost laughed. "What kind of scene do you imagine I'll make? I don't know anymore." That was honest, and it hurt more than the accusations. She got into her car. Before closing the door, she said, "The insurance agent needs you to sign a release, too. Send it. I already did." Of course she had. At midnight, I was awake when the phone company emailed confirmation that Brooke's number had transferred successfully. I opened my account. The family plan page had changed. Her name was gone. Beneath mine, an empty line offered ADD another member. I closed the app and lay in bed, listening to rain begin against the roof. At 12:17, my phone lit up. Brooke had sent a photograph. Tom stood in her apartment beneath the exposed black pipes, holding a drill in one hand and squinting at a curtain bracket. His hair was still dark in places. Brooke was visible in the edge of the frame, laughing at something outside the picture. Under it, she had written, "He loved this place." I looked at the photograph for a long time. Then I answered, "Yes, he did." The 3 dots appeared. I waited. They vanished without another message. The insurance release arrived the next morning with yellow boxes marking where I needed to sign. I signed it during lunch and emailed it back without commentary. Brooke's new job began sending evidence of itself into our conversations. A photograph of a ballroom with 70 chairs facing the wrong direction. A complaint about a chef who believed vegetarian meant remove the visible bacon. A text at 5:38 one morning asking whether Tom's old travel mug was still at my house. I answered practical questions and did not force the others. Yes, the mug was in the cabinet. No, I had not found her navy scarf. The insurance paperwork had been processed. Some days she wrote back, "Thank you." Some days the exchange ended with my message hanging there, like a hand nobody took. Her first full week at the hotel, she worked 61 hours. I knew because she told Doreen, and Doreen told me while pretending the information had appeared naturally in a conversation about tomatoes. "She's exhausted," Doreen said. "That happens during banquet season. They've put her in charge of 3 corporate events already. She's good at it. She says the salary still isn't enough for the apartment." I waited. Doreen cleared her throat. "I'm not asking. Good. I'm just telling you. You're telling me in the voice you use when you're asking. I don't have an asking voice." "You have 7. She hung up irritated, but she did not mention the rent again. The anniversary came on a gray Thursday. I woke at 4:11 to the sound of Tom coughing. It was not real. I knew that before I sat up. The room was dark, the other side of the bed smooth and cold, but my body had already started moving toward the bathroom where I used to keep his medication chart. I turned on the lamp and stayed sitting until the panic passed. On the dresser was the navy suit I had laid out for Carmine's. At midnight, I had decided to go. At 2, I decided not to. At 4:11, the suit looked like clothing chosen for somebody else. I went to work anyway. Naomi did not mention the date. She set a coffee on my desk at 8, black with 1 sugar, and said, "Calvin put lumbar cushions in the right location without supervision. Civilization advances." I looked at the coffee. "Thank you, I bought too many. You bought one." She glanced toward the door. "Do you want me to lie more convincingly?" "No, good. I have work." At 3, she returned and turned off my monitor. I was using that. "You've checked the same shipment 6 times. It has a discrepancy." It had a discrepancy. Calvin corrected it at 11. I looked at the screen as if it might defend me. Naomi picked up my keys and placed them beside my hand. "Go home, put on whatever armor civilians wear to Italian restaurants, and try not to arrest a relative. I don't arrest people. I don't know what first sergeants do. Mostly paperwork. That's disappointing." I left. At home, the key Brooke had returned was still in Tom's bowl. I had moved it twice while dusting and put it back both times. I picked it up, closed my hand around the teeth, and carried it upstairs. For a moment, I considered putting it in my jewelry box. Instead, I left it on the dresser beside my watch. The navy suit fit more tightly than it had at the funeral. I changed blouses 3 times. One looked too severe, one too cheerful, and one had a faint stain near the cuff that only I could see. Tom would have told me nobody was conducting a cuff inspection at Carmine's. I wore the stained one. There were 12 people at the restaurant when I arrived. Carmine's had pushed 3 tables together near the back, beside a fake stone arch, wrapped in plastic grapevines. Doreen stood arranging place cards, though there were no assigned seats. She hugged me before I could avoid it. "I'm glad you came. You said 6. It's 5:57. I know." She held me a second longer than necessary. Brooke wasn't sure. That I could tell time? That you'd come. Brooke stood near the end of the table talking to Paul and Janice. She wore a black dress and Tom's watch, now fitted correctly against her wrist. Marcus stood beside her in a gray jacket, close enough to suggest they had arrived together, but not close enough to touch. Brooke saw me. Her expression went blank, then arranged itself into courtesy. "Hi, Lena." "Hi." Marcus nodded. "Good to see you." "You too." Nobody knew what to do next. Janice rescued us by hugging me and saying, "This must be such a hard day for you." It was meant kindly. It also sounded as if she had just remembered I was involved. We sat. Doreen put me across from Brooke, perhaps imagining the table could perform reconciliation through geometry. Marcus sat beside Brooke. Doreen took the chair next to me. The server poured water and explained the fixed menu. Chicken piccata, baked salmon, lasagna, salad, garlic bread, and dessert. Tom would have ordered the lasagna, complained about the portion, and eaten half my chicken. I chose chicken. For the first 20 minutes, everybody discussed traffic, parking, and the danger of ordering fish at a restaurant known for red sauce. Then Paul told a story about Tom falling off a ladder into a hydrangea bush. He came into my kitchen covered in leaves, Paul said. Wouldn't admit he fell. Said the ladder shifted. The ladder did shift, Doreen said. He was standing on the top step. That still counts as shifting. The table laughed. More stories followed. Tom replacing Janice's garbage disposal and somehow disconnecting her dishwasher. Tom taking Doreen to a concert, then falling asleep during the opening act. Tom trying to teach Brooke to drive a manual transmission in a parking lot and saying words she had never heard from him before. I laughed with everyone else. My memories of Tom were quieter and less suitable for a table. His hand reaching across the bed in his sleep. The way he rinsed dishes without putting them in the dishwasher. The private face he made when Payne arrived and he did not want Brooke to see. A screen at the end of the table began showing photographs Brooke had assembled. Tom on job sites. Tom beside his pickup. Tom and Brooke holding trout at Mill Creek. Tom asleep in the recliner with his mouth open. There were photographs of our wedding, but in most of them he stood alone or beside relatives. One picture showed Tom cutting our anniversary cake. My hand was visible at the edge, steadying the plate. I stared at my own fingers. Brooke followed my gaze to the screen. "I used what I had on my phone," she said. "I didn't say anything. You made a face. This is my face." Across from me, Marcus lowered his eyes. He had heard that line before. The food arrived. Carmine's had sweetened the sauce as if preparing it for a dessert course. Tom would have hated it. I ate every bite. After the plates were cleared, Doreen stood with her wine glass. "I'm not good at speeches," she began, which was untrue. Doreen gave speeches when returning merchandise. She spoke about Tom's generosity, his terrible jokes, and his habit of arriving to fix one problem and creating 2 more. Her voice shook when she said his name. For all her mistakes, she had loved her brother without qualification. "He took care of everybody," she said. "That was Tom. If you were his, he made sure you were okay. Brooke, me, Lena." My name came last, offered as evidence of his generosity. I kept my hands in my lap. Brooke stood next. She did not bring a glass. "My dad believed family meant showing up," she said. "Not only when it was convenient, not only when people were easy to love." Her eyes passed over me without stopping. "He gave people fresh starts. He didn't keep score. I think the best way we can honor him is to keep doing that for one another." The message was clear enough that even Paul stared at his napkin. Brooke sat. Marcus whispered something to her. She shook her head. Dessert arrived in little glass cups. Tiramisu for everyone, whether requested or not. I ate 2 bites and set down my spoon. The bill came to Doreen in a black folder. She opened it, blinked, and waved the server back. "I think there's a mistake." The server explained that the reservation guaranteed 15 meals. We had 13 people, counting a late arrival I barely knew. The package also included a service charge and the dessert Doreen believed was complimentary. "They said no room fee," she whispered. "There isn't one," the server said. "This is the food minimum." Doreen looked across the table. I thought everyone was paying their own portion. People began reaching for wallets. Paul placed cash beside his plate. Janice asked whether the service charge included the tip. Marcus offered his card for his meal and Brooks. Brooks' head snapped toward him. "I can pay mine." "With what card?" he asked quietly. The answer was too quiet for most of the table, but I heard it. Doreen calculated twice, her lips moving. Even with everyone paying for their meals, the 2 empty places, service charge, and tax left nearly $300 uncovered. Her eyes found mine. I held the look. She glanced away first. "I'll put the balance on my card," she said. "You don't have to," I told her. Her face tightened with embarrassed hope. "We can ask them to divide the extra evenly," I continued. Brooke gave a small, disbelieving laugh. "Of course." "What?" "Nothing." Doreen shook her head. "No, I invited everybody. I'll handle it." She gave the server her card. Nobody made a toast after that. In the parking lot, people hugged beneath the yellow restaurant lights. Paul told me to call sometime. Janice squeezed both my hands and said Tom had been one of the good ones. Marcus walked toward his car alone while Brooke remained beside Doreen. I was unlocking my door when Brooke approached. "You enjoyed that," she said. "What?" "Aunt Doreen getting stuck with the bill." "No, you could have covered it without noticing. I offered to split the difference. You knew she wouldn't let everyone pay. I did not choose the restaurant or make the reservation." She folded her arms against the cold. "Everything with you comes down to who owes what." "No. Lately, everything with you comes down to who will pay." Her eyes flashed. Behind her, Doreen stood beside her car, watching us. "Dad would have paid it," Brooke said. "Your father would have promised to pay it." The words left my mouth and stayed between us. Brooke went still. I saw Doreen's face change. "What is that supposed to mean?" Brooke asked. I looked at both of them. "It means Tom was generous with money even when the money was mine." Brooke's mouth opened, but Doreen spoke first. "Was his business failing?" she asked. There was no accusation in her voice, only a question she had apparently never thought to ask. "Yes," I said. Doreen stared at me under the parking lot lights. "How bad?" "Bad enough that my deployment pay kept the house." Brooke shook her head. "No, I'm not discussing it here. You brought it up." I answered a question. "You're making him sound pathetic." "No," I said. "I'm making him human." I got into my car and closed the door. Through the windshield, I watched Brooke turn toward Doreen, already speaking. Doreen did not answer her. She was still looking at me. I drove home with Tom's favorite radio station playing low. When I entered the house, the light on the answering machine was blinking. One message. Doreen's voice filled the kitchen. "Lena, call me tomorrow. I need to understand what you meant." I listened to it twice. Then I turned off the machine and went upstairs, leaving Brooke's key beside my watch. Doreen called at 7:02 the next morning. "You said tomorrow," I answered. "It is tomorrow. It has barely begun. I've been awake since 5. That was your decision." She sighed. "Can I come over?" "Have you eaten?" "No." "Bring bagels." She arrived 25 minutes later with 6 bagels, 2 containers of cream cheese, and no understanding of appropriate quantities. She wore yesterday's white pants, now marked near one ankle with a streak of red sauce. I pointed at the stain. "Carmine's," she said. "That sauce follows you home." Tom hated it. I know. Brooke wanted Italian. Bellini's was Italian. Bellini's wanted $900. She stopped, apparently hearing the number for the first time in a different context. We carried the food into the kitchen. I sliced a bagel. Doreen sat at the table with her handbag still on her shoulder, ready to flee if history became impolite. "How bad was the business?" she asked. "Which year?" Her face tightened. "There was more than one? It struggled before I met him. It recovered, then the housing market slowed. 2 clients didn't pay. Tom kept 3 employees longer than he could afford because one had a mortgage and another was getting divorced." "That sounds like him." "Yes. He told me he was scaling back. He was. That isn't the same as failing. No, it was the word he could live with." I put cream cheese on my bagel. Doreen did not touch hers. "When you deployed," she said, "he told us the contracts were steady. They weren't. He bought a truck. I bought the truck." She stared at me. "Not the one outside," I said. "The earlier one. He needed it for work and his credit was tied up in the business." "Why didn't you tell anybody?" "It wasn't anybody's business. I'm his sister. I was his wife." The words came out sharper than I intended. Doreen looked down. I sat across from her. "Tom wasn't trying to deceive you," I said. "He was trying not to become a person he thought you would pity. I wouldn't have pitied him. You asked me last night why he didn't pay a restaurant bill." Her eyes lifted. "That isn't fair," she said. "No, but it's relevant." She removed her handbag from her shoulder and placed it on the empty chair. The movement was small, but it meant she was staying. "Brooke thinks you're tearing him down," she said. "I know. She says you're angry he made you promise to help her." "I'm angry that everybody thinks he left me instructions and money, didn't he? He left instructions." Doreen flinched. I told her about the 6-month promise, about Brooke's layoff and the way Tom worried during those final weeks, about the night he woke confused and asked whether we had paid Brooke's electric bill, though it had never been ours to pay, about how he relaxed when I said I would make sure she did not lose her apartment while she got back on her feet. I did not turn Tom into a villain. I did not need to. The truth was painful enough without decoration. "He thought you'd keep doing it," Doreen said. "Probably." "Then Brooke isn't wrong that it was what he wanted. Wanting something doesn't earn the money to sustain it." Doreen broke off a piece of bagel. "You always had more than him. I earned more than him. I meant stability. So did I." She nodded reluctantly. "Do you remember the year he flew to Chicago for Christmas?" I asked. "He said you couldn't get leave." "I couldn't. I was in Kuwait. I know where you were. Do you know I paid for his ticket, your rental house, the groceries, and Brooke's flight from college?" Doreen stopped chewing. "He said the business had a good quarter. The business account was overdrawn." She set the bagel down. I had not planned to give her numbers or dates. Once I began, however, ordinary details came loose. The mortgage transfers from an account Tom never checked because online banking made him nervous. The health premiums deducted from my pay. The home repairs postponed until my annual clothing allowance arrived. The transmission Brooke believed her father had replaced. Doreen listened without interrupting. Finally, she asked, "Did he pay for anything?" The question offended me on Tom's behalf. Of course he did. When the business was healthy, he contributed. He renovated half this house with his own hands. He cooked, shopped, kept track of birthdays, and drove 3 hours because you thought your water heater sounded strange. It was making a noise. It was heating water. She almost smiled. "I'm not saying Tom gave nothing," I said. "I'm saying what he gave doesn't belong to him twice." Doreen rubbed the red stain on her pants with one thumb. "He told Brooke he supported you through your army years." I'm sure he believed he did he? Emotionally? Sometimes? Practically? Often? Financially? No. She looked toward the buffet. Tom's photograph faced the table again, perfectly straight. "I wish you'd told me." "Why?" "So I wouldn't have said what I said. You could have avoided it by not assuming." That landed. Doreen picked up her bagel and took another bite, chewing longer than necessary. Before leaving, she stood at the front door and looked down at Brooke's key in the bowl. "She has to be out of the apartment next Friday," she said. "I know when the lease ends. She didn't renew. That's sensible. She doesn't have another place. There were several options. The Willow apartment is gone." She waited too long. I said nothing. She found a furnished studio near the hotel, Doreen continued. It's small, but she could walk to work. They want the first month and a security deposit. How much? $3,200 total. I felt the old machinery inside me start. Available funds, timeline, immediate requirements, contingency. I shut it down. She has a salary now. Her first full paycheck won't arrive before the move. She has Marcus. Marcus offered to help move. He won't lend money until they sort things out. That sounded like a boundary. It sounded familiar. Doreen adjusted her handbag. I could give her $500. No. She blinked. I wasn't asking you to pay all of it. You were asking me to complete the amount. She'll pay you back. No, Lena. I'll lend her the truck. I'll help her move. I won't pay the deposit. She may have nowhere to go. She has options. Extended stay hotels, a short-term rental, friends. She doesn't want everyone knowing. Then she should have chosen housing before the final week. Doreen's mouth tightened, but she did not call me cruel. All right, she said. It was the first time she had accepted my answer without trying to outlast it. Brooke sent me a message that afternoon. I hope telling Aunt Doreen all of Dad's failures made you feel better. I answered. I told her the truth about our marriage. Her reply came quickly. Your version. I put the phone away. At work, the days filled with end-of-month counts and a delayed shipment of compression pumps. Calvin found a duplicate order before it left the warehouse. I told him good job. He stared at me. What? I asked. Nothing. I just didn't think you said that. I say it when it's true. He grinned for the rest of the shift. Brooke's apartment disappeared in pieces. Doreen reported that the dining table sold on Tuesday. The couch went to a woman from Brooke's hotel. Marcus stored 6 boxes in his brother's garage. Brooke listed her bed frame online, then reduced the price twice. I received none of this from Brooke. On Wednesday, she asked if she could borrow Tom's pickup Saturday morning. You can use it, I wrote. I'm available to help. I don't need help. I left the offer standing. Friday evening, I came home to rainwater dripping from the gutter above the garage. Tom had meant to replace that section. He had bought the brackets, labeled the bag gutter, and left it on the workbench before his diagnosis returned. I carried a ladder outside. Arthur appeared from across the street before I reached the second rung. Are you planning to climb that in the rain? He called. It's barely raining. It's water falling from the sky. I know what rain is. I taught chemistry, not meteorology, but I'm confident. He held the ladder while I climbed. The bracket had pulled loose from rotten fascia. A new screw would not hold. You need the wood replaced, Arthur said. I can see that. Tom talked about doing it. Tom talked about doing many things. Arthur looked up at me. You sound angry. I'm wet. That too. I climbed down. Inside the garage, Arthur noticed the gaps where the fly rod and record crates had been. Brooke collecting things? Some. Good. I looked at him. He lifted both hands. I mean, good that she has pieces of him, not good that the garage looks raided. It does not look raided. It looks selectively looted. She took what belonged to her. Arthur nodded toward the cordless drill, surprised that survived. She tried. He laughed, then saw my face and stopped. We found a tarp and secured it above the damaged gutter. Arthur held the flashlight while I tied the last corner. Big house for one person, he said. It was a big house for two. True. I waited for him to suggest selling, downsizing, moving near a retirement community, or any of the helpful ideas people gave widows as if our homes became errors after our husbands died. Arthur only said, You've got bagels? 5. Doreen? Who else buys 6 bagels for 2 people? We ate them at the kitchen table while rain tapped the window. Arthur told me about a former colleague who had married a woman he met in a bird-watching group. I told him that sounded dangerous. At 9:30, he left carrying the last bagel in a sandwich bag. I was locking the door when headlights swept across the front window. A car stopped in the driveway behind Tom's pickup. Brooke got out. Her hair was wet, her work blouse wrinkled, and the silver watch flashed beneath the porch light. She opened the rear door. The back seat was packed to the ceiling with suitcases, garment bags, and cardboard boxes. I stepped onto the porch. I thought you were moving tomorrow. I turned in the keys tonight. Where are you staying? She looked past me through the open door. My stomach tightened. Brooke. She folded her arms, shivering in the rain. I need the guest room, she said, just until I figure something out. I looked at the packed car, then back at her. No. The word came out quietly. Brooke blinked rain from her eyelashes. No what? You can't move into the guest room. I said temporarily. So did I, 18 months ago. Her mouth opened. I saw the instant she understood that I had been expecting this possibility, not tonight exactly, but in the way you expect a weak seam to fail under pressure. You would rather leave a room empty than let me sleep in it? Yes. The honesty shocked both of us. Rain rattled against the gutter tarp. Water ran from Brooke's hair onto the shoulders of her blouse. I stepped aside. Come in and dry off. She did not move. I'm not coming in for coffee while you make me homeless. You have options. I have a car full of my life. Doreen said the studio was available. I don't have $3,200. You've known that. So this is a lecture? No, it's an answer. She walked past me into the house carrying a suitcase as if the argument had already been decided. One wheel left a wet track across the entry floor. I took a towel from the laundry room and handed it to her. She ignored it. The suitcase stood beneath the ceramic bowl. Brooke looked at her key, then at me. This was Dad's house. Yes. So you're telling me he would leave me outside in the rain? I'm telling you I won't let you move in. You keep hiding behind I statements like that makes everything healthy. I'm not trying to make it healthy. I'm trying to make it clear. She pushed wet hair from her face. I can pay you once my checks start coming regularly. I don't want rent from you. Then what do you want? I want this house to remain my home. I wouldn't take over your house. You tried to assign yourself my pension at the dining table. Her face tightened. You will never let me forget that sentence. Not while you keep proving you meant it. She picked up the towel and rubbed it over her hair with angry, jerking motions. I have work at 7 tomorrow morning, she said. I just finished a 14-hour day. The hotel moved my start time, and I still had to clear the apartment. I am asking for a bed. One night becomes the weekend. The weekend becomes until your next paycheck. Then the studio falls through or the deposit changes or something else happens. You don't know that. I know our pattern, your pattern. You're the one who changes the rules. The rule was 6 months. My dad died. Yes. The words stopped her. I had been careful for so long not to say what both of us knew. Tom's death explained the extension, but it could not become a permanent exemption from adulthood. Brooke sank onto the bottom stair. The towel hung between her hands. I couldn't leave that apartment, she said. Her voice had changed. No edge, no courtroom. I know. No, you don't. Marcus told me. She closed her eyes. Of course he did. He was trying to explain, not expose you. The last time Dad came over, he fixed the bedroom door because it wouldn't close. He kept shaving the edge, and then he took too much off. There was a gap at the top. That sounds like him. After he died, I could see that gap from bed. I know it's stupid. It isn't. I kept thinking if I moved, I'd lose all the places where he had been. I sat on the stair 2 steps above her. When I took the truck for gas, I found one of his receipts beside the seat. I said. I put it back. Why? Because it was where he left it. She looked at me. Grief recognized itself for one quiet second. Then Brooke said, "So let me stay." I closed my eyes. There it was. Pain translated back into permission. No. She stood so quickly the towel dropped. You are unbelievable. I can help you find a room tonight. I don't want a room. I need a home. A home is something you can afford to keep. The sentence sounded cruel as soon as it left me, but it was true, and I no longer knew how to separate those things. I went to the kitchen and brought back the list I had made after Doreen's visit. 3 extended stay hotels within 20 minutes of Brooke's job, 2 short-term room rentals, a furnished apartment complex with weekly rates. Brooke stared at the paper. You made a list? I knew you might need one. You knew, and you still let this happen. I prepared for your decision. My decision? You rejected Willow. You waited on the renewal. You did not secure the studio, because I thought I could work something out. With whom? She did not answer. I called the first extended stay hotel. They had a room for $119, including tax. The second was full. The third had a room for $98, but was farther from the hotel and required a 2-night minimum. Brooke took the phone and booked the first one with her own card. When she finished, she handed it back without looking at me. I hope this feels worth it, she said. It doesn't. Then why are you doing it? Because feeling bad is not proof I'm wrong. She dragged the suitcase toward the door. I picked up the bottom when one wheel caught on the threshold. Don't, she said. It's stuck. I can handle it. I can see that. She yanked hard. The wheel broke free and the suitcase tipped sideways onto the porch. We carried it to her car together, one of us at each end. The rain had softened to mist. I helped rearrange 2 boxes so it would fit in the back seat. Before she got in, I said, "Call me when you reach the hotel." She laughed once. "You don't get to turn me away and then track my safe arrival. I'm not tracking you. I'm asking you to call." "No." She drove off. At 10:21, a message arrived. "I'm here," I answered. "Thank you." Doreen called before I went to bed. She said you wouldn't let her stay. That's correct. She was soaking wet. I gave her a towel. "Lena, I found her a hotel. You made her pay for a hotel. Did you offer your place?" A pause. "Yes." "And?" She said the commute would be impossible. Then she had somewhere to go. My condo is 45 minutes from her work. People commute. You really weren't going to let her through the door? I did let her through the door. You know what I mean? Yes. Doreen's voice lowered. I understand the rent now. I understand more than I did. But this feels different. It would become the same. You don't know that. I know I would wake up listening for her. I would buy food she likes. I would ask what time she was coming home, then pretend I wasn't waiting. I would help with one bill because living here would make her other expenses look temporary. In 6 months, she would still be here, and I would hate both of us. Doreen said nothing. I'm not doing that to her, I continued, or to me. All right. She sounded sad, not convinced. That was harder to resist than anger. Brooke remained at the hotel for 9 nights. I knew because the credit card charge appeared in no account I could see, but Doreen reported the cost each evening as if reading a casualty list. Brooke worked. She opened 2 breakfast meetings, stayed late for a pharmaceutical banquet, and spent her days off touring places that had already been rented by the time she applied. On the 10th morning, she called while I was labeling a shelf with Calvin. I got approved for the studio, she said. That's good. I need $1,500. I walked into my office and closed the door. For what? The balance of the move-in money. Aunt Doreen gave me $500. I get a full paycheck next Friday. I can repay you then. No, you didn't even think. I've thought about this for 6 weeks. It would be a loan. We don't need another arrangement between us. Then I stay in the hotel another week and spend almost $700. That's your decision. My other option is selling Dad's watch. I sat behind my desk. The watch flashed in my mind, loose on Tom's thinning wrist, then fitted against Brooke's skin at Carmine's. Don't use the watch to force me, I said. I'm not forcing you. I'm telling you reality. You have other things you can sell. Nothing worth enough. You can rent a room instead of the studio. I'm 35 years old. I don't want to live in a stranger's spare bedroom. You're 35 years old, I repeated. That means wanting something doesn't make me responsible for the difference. Her breathing changed. Dad wanted me to have this watch. Yes, he wanted me to keep it. Then keep it. And lose the studio? That is your choice. You always have an answer. No, I have a boundary. She hung up. For the rest of the day, I made small mistakes. I printed the wrong receiving labels. I walked to aisle 9 and forgot why I was there. Naomi brought me soup at lunch and did not ask anything. 2 days later, Doreen came to the warehouse. She stood in the reception area clutching her handbag while Calvin tried to determine whether she was a vendor. "I need to talk to you," she said. I led her outside. The sun was painfully bright. Delivery trucks backed toward the loading bays with warning beeps. "She sold the watch," Doreen said. I looked past her at the trucks. "How much?" $1,200. It was worth more. Tom had known that when he bought it used, then wore it until every scratch became his. "Did she get the studio?" "Yes. She moves in tomorrow." Doreen searched my face. "You could have stopped this." "No. She sold something he wanted her to keep. She made a choice. Listen to yourself. I am." The problem was that I could also hear Tom. "Keep this safe for Brooke." I had kept it safe. I had placed it in her hands. After Doreen left, I returned to my office and shut the door. At 5:30, Brooke sent a photograph of a small brass key resting on her bare palm. "The studio," she wrote. I handled it. I zoomed in without meaning to. Her wrist was empty. My fingers hovered over the screen. I typed, "Yes, you did." Then I set the phone down and cried for the first time since I canceled the rent. I cried with both hands flat on my desk, as if bracing during turbulence. There was nothing graceful about it. My nose ran. My shoulders shook. I tried breathing through it, which only produced a noise like a lawnmower failing to start. A knock sounded against the glass. Naomi entered without waiting. She carried my coat and the plastic container I had left in the break room refrigerator. She set both on the visitor chair, opened the bottom drawer of my desk, and removed the box of tissues I kept there. "I knew you had supplies," she said. I took 3 tissues. She sat across from me. "Do I need to hate someone?" "No. Good. I'm tired." I laughed and cried harder. Naomi looked toward the ceiling, giving me the limited privacy available inside a glass office. When I could speak, I said, "Brooke sold Tom's watch. Was it hers?" "Yes." "Then you didn't sell it. I could have prevented it." Naomi turned back to me. "By paying?" "Yes." "That isn't preventing. That's purchasing a different outcome. She needed a deposit, and she found one. You sound like me. I've been exposed to you for 4 years. There are consequences." I wiped my face. "He asked me to keep it safe for her." "Did you?" "Yes." "Did you give it to her?" "Yes." "Then you completed the mission." "It wasn't a mission." Naomi's expression softened. "That might be part of the problem." She walked me to my car without discussing it further. At home, I sat in the driveway until the garage light clicked off automatically and left me in the dark. The next morning, rainwater had collected in the tarp above the damaged gutter, pulling one corner loose. I called a contractor instead of climbing the ladder. The estimate for replacing the rotten fascia and gutter section was $860. A month earlier, I would have postponed the repair until spring. I would have told myself the wood could survive another season, then transferred $900 to Brooke. I authorized the work. The contractor arrived with 2 men, 1 ladder, and a radio tuned to classic rock. They removed a strip of fascia so rotten it crumbled in gloved hands. Behind it, the roofline was sound. The damage was ordinary and contained. I stood in the driveway watching them fit the new board. Arthur wandered over carrying 2 coffees. "You hired professionals," he said. "I recognize your disappointment. I had $10 riding on you attempting it yourself." "With whom?" "Myself." He gave me a coffee. "House needs paint next." "I know, and the back steps are settling." "I know. The upstairs windows." "Arthur." He drank his coffee. I looked at the long roofline, the 3 upstairs windows, the garage Tom built onto the side before we married. The house had 4 bedrooms. One held nothing but exercise equipment and unopened boxes. Another was the guest room Brooke had wanted. Tom's workbench occupied enough space for a small apartment. "It's too much," I said. Arthur did not pretend to misunderstand. "The maintenance?" "The whole thing." He nodded. "Tom loved this house." He did. I loved it with him. Arthur looked toward his own smaller place across the street. Those are two different sentences. That afternoon, I called a real estate agent named Elaine Becker. She had sold a house 2 doors down and had mailed me calendars for 7 consecutive years. Persistence deserves some reward. Elaine arrived Friday wearing red glasses and shoes, unsuitable for inspecting basements. She walked through every room, opened closets with permission, and made notes on a tablet. In the guest room, she paused beside the cedar chest. Beautiful piece. My husband made it. Stays with you then. Yes. The answer came before grief could negotiate. Elaine recommended painting 2 rooms, repairing the back steps, and removing half the furniture before photographs. She gave me a price range that was reasonable, not miraculous, enough to buy something smaller after closing costs, with less yard and no gutter high enough to require Arthur's supervision. There are townhouses near the river, she said. 1 level, attached garages, walking trail behind the property. I don't need a walking trail. Nobody does. It's still there. I visited one the next day. The townhouse had 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, and windows overlooking a strip of trees beside the water. The garage would hold Tom's pickup and a smaller workbench. The river was visible only in winter, according to the owner, but I could hear it from the back patio. I stood in the empty living room and imagined my furniture reduced to what I actually used. The thought felt disloyal. It also felt like oxygen. I made an offer contingent on selling the house. Elaine asked when I planned to tell family, before the sign goes up. That's usually wise. She did not ask whether I needed permission. I liked her. The car insurance deadline arrived the following week. Brooke had obtained her own policy through a company that advertised rates using an animated bird. The coverage was legal and unremarkable. She emailed me the proof, I signed the release, and the agent removed her vehicle from my account. My premium dropped by $137. Between the phone plan, insurance, and rent, there was now more than $1,100 each month with no assignment. I transferred $900 into savings and left the rest in checking. Not because I owed myself a reward, because the gutters would not be the last thing to rot. Brooke did not mention the watch again. She sent Doreen photographs of the studio, and Doreen forwarded them to me until I asked her to stop acting as a courier. It has 1 window, Doreen said. It's a studio. The refrigerator is beside the bed. I assume there's a wall. Half a wall. Then she can reach breakfast without standing. Doreen laughed, then covered it with a cough. Brooke had found a narrow dining cart at a thrift store and was using 2 stacked suitcases as a television stand. She walked to work. She took extra banquet shifts and paid Doreen $50 from her first full paycheck. That fact reached me despite my ban on courier service because Doreen was physically incapable of withholding evidence that supported her current argument. She's trying, she said. I know. Marcus helped her put up shelves. That was kind. They're still together. I'm glad. He told her there won't be wedding plans until they can discuss money without fighting. That's sensible. You don't always have to sound pleased when people suffer sensibly. I'm not pleased. Doreen studied me across my kitchen table. We'd begun sharing coffee once a week, though neither of us acknowledged it as a routine. She brought unreasonable quantities of food. I corrected her version of family history. Sometimes we annoyed each other so badly she left early. That was closer to a real relationship than we had before. When I told her about the house, she set down her coffee without drinking. You're selling? Yes. Because of Brooke? No. Are you sure? I've been considering it since the gutter repair. That was 2 weeks ago. I consider efficiently. Doreen stood and walked to the living room doorway. Her gaze moved over Tom's chair, the wooden bowl, the framed photographs. What happens to all this? I keep what I want. Brooke gets what belongs to her. The rest is sold or donated. Does Brooke know? Not yet. You need to tell her yourself. I intend to. Doreen touched the back of Tom's recliner. He lived here, she said. He also died here. She turned. I had never said that aloud. Tom died in our bedroom before sunrise while rain struck the windows. Brooke was on her way. Doreen was asleep at home. I was beside him with one hand against his chest, counting breaths long after counting had become useless. The house held that too. Doreen came back to the table and picked up her coffee. What is the new place like? Smaller, I gathered. Near the river. Tom hated water views. He said they attracted mosquitoes. He was right. He often was, accidentally. Doreen smiled. She did not tell me not to sell. I called Brooke Sunday evening. She answered from work. I could hear dishes and voices behind her. Is something wrong? She asked. No. Is this a bad time? I have 6 minutes before we turn the room. I can call later. No, what is it? I looked around the kitchen. Tom had installed the cabinet doors and hung one slightly lower than the others. I had stopped noticing until Elaine pointed it out. I'm listing the house. Silence. A metal tray clattered in the background. What? I'm selling the house. Why? It's too large. The maintenance is becoming more than I want. You never said you were thinking about selling. I'm telling you now. How long have you been planning this? I met with an agent 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks? I wanted to know my options first. Brooke's voice dropped. Do Doreen and Marcus know? Doreen knows. I haven't spoken to Marcus, so everybody knows except me. Doreen learned Thursday. You should have called me before an agent. For what? To discuss it. The decision is mine. A sharp breath entered the phone. There are things of Dad's in that house. I know. Things he wanted me to have. We can go through them together. You already decided what I'm allowed to have. I decided you weren't taking my furniture and tools. His furniture and tools. Mine now. She said nothing. I continued before anger could carry us somewhere useless. Elaine wants the house cleared before photographs. Come Sunday. We'll sort the garage and you can identify anything Tom specifically promised you. What about the money from the house? The question was quiet. What about it? Dad put years into that house. So did I. I'm asking whether any of it comes to me. No. The word hung between us. That house was part of our family, she said. It is my home and my asset. You keep finding new pieces of Dad to turn into yours. I'm selling a building, not your father. Easy distinction for you. No, Brooke, it isn't easy. Someone called her name in the background. I have to go. Sunday at 10. Don't touch Dad's things until I get there. The call ended. I stood in the kitchen with the phone still against my ear. Then I walked into the garage and looked at Tom's workbench. Above it, the empty hooks from the fly rod had left 2 pale marks in the dust. I did not touch anything. Not because Brooke had ordered me not to, because I wanted one last week with the room exactly as he had left it. At 9:30 Sunday morning, I placed 3 empty boxes beside Tom's workbench and labeled them Keep, Brooke, and Donate. Then I added a 4th labeled Decide. Later, because experience had taught me that every clean system eventually encountered human beings. I opened the garage door. Cool air rolled in across the concrete. Dust floated through the sunlight, and the neighborhood began its weekly chorus of lawn mowers, leaf blowers, and people proving they owned power tools. Brooke arrived at 10:13 alone. She parked at the curb instead of the driveway. When she entered the garage, she wore jeans, work shoes, and an old Brantley Hotel sweatshirt from the job she had lost. Her hair was tied back. No purse. No boxes of her own. You're late, I said. I worked until 1. You could have texted. I'm here. She looked at my labels. Of course. What? Nothing. People have been saying nothing to me with considerable force lately. She walked to the workbench. Where's Aunt Doreen? I didn't invite her. I did. Why? Because I don't want this turning into another situation where your memory is treated like an official record. I closed the marker cap. If you need a witness, we can wait outside. I need someone who knew Dad before you. And you believe that gives her expertise in our marriage? It gives her expertise in him. I leaned against the workbench. We'll wait. Brooke opened the drawer, labeled tape. What are you doing? Looking. Looking isn't sorting. This is why nobody wants to do things with you. You came here specifically to do a thing with me." She shut the drawer. Doreen arrived 4 minutes later carrying coffee for 3 in a white bakery bag. She looked from Brooke to me, assessed the temperature, and handed me the largest cup. "I brought bear claws," she said. "Why?" "Because bagels weren't enough last time. That isn't how lessons work." She put the bakery bag on the workbench. "I'm not here to referee," Brooke said. "You're absolutely here to referee. I'm here because you told me Lena was giving away Tom's belongings." I looked at Brooke. I said she was clearing the garage. "Those are different sentences," Doreen said. Brooke folded her arms. "Can we start?" We began with the drawers. The first held drill bits. Most of them returned to the wrong slots. Tom claimed organizing drill bits by size encouraged elitism. I kept the full set and gave Brooke a smaller case he used for household repairs. "He taught me with these," she said. "I remember. You said I couldn't take tools. I said you couldn't take all the toolboxes." She opened the case. One bit was missing. "Where's the 1/4 inch?" "Probably inside a wall." Doreen laughed. The next drawer contained tape measures. 7 of them. "Nobody needs 7, Brooke said. "Your father bought one every time he couldn't find the other 6. She chose the yellow tape measure with Tom, written on the back in black marker. I put 2 in keep, 1 in donate, and the remaining 3 in decide later because waste had emotional complexity when the dead person caused it. We sorted slowly. A carpenter's square went to me. 2 levels went to donation. Brooke took a small ball-peen hammer because Tom had once used it to help her repair a bent lamp. Doreen claimed a jar of mismatched screws, then admitted she had no use for them and moved it to donation. The stories attached to objects made every decision heavier than the object itself. At 11, we reached the cabinets beneath the workbench. Tom's old invoices filled one shelf, bundled by year. I had already kept the tax records required and marked the rest for shredding. Brooke lifted one bundle. "You're throwing out his business? I'm shredding 14-year-old invoices. It's still his history. It's lumber quantities and labor charges. That mattered to him. It mattered until the tax retention period expired." She stared at me. Doreen took the bundle from her and read the top page. "Is this the Wilson deck?" "Yes. He said he made $12,000 on that job. That was the contract amount. Materials and labor came out of it." Doreen examined the invoice as if subtraction had been invented recently. Brooke pulled another bundle from the shelf. "So now we're auditing him?" "No, we're clearing paper. You kept all this, though, because I keep records. But no photographs from the job sites? They're on his computer, which you haven't offered. It's in the house. You can copy the photographs. Before you wipe it? Before I recycle it. There's always a deadline with you." "Yes, the house is being listed." She put the invoices down. "You already made an offer somewhere, didn't you?" I looked at Doreen. Her face revealed nothing. "How did you know?" "You don't make a move without already knowing where your feet land. A townhouse near the river." Brooke gave a short laugh. "So this is done. The offer depends on selling this place. You've decided." "Yes." She walked out of the garage into the driveway, arms folded tightly across her chest. Doreen looked at me. "Go talk to her," she said. "She knows where I am." "Lena, I thought you weren't refereeing." I lied. Brooke stood near the truck looking up at the house. I joined her but left several feet between us. "Dad built that garage," she said. "He added it. He replaced the kitchen. He refinished the floors. He made the deck. Yes, and now you get to sell all of it. I get to sell my house. It was his house too, it was. So his part just disappears? No. His ownership passed to me when he died. That was never hidden. I'm not talking about legal ownership." "Then what are you talking about?" She turned. "Fairness? Be specific." "Why? So you can dismantle every sentence? So I can understand what you want. I want you to stop acting like Dad contributed nothing. I have never said that. You keep saying you paid the mortgage and saved the business and bought the truck. Fine, you win. But he put his hands on every room in that house. So did I. You were gone half the time. The sentence struck harder than she knew, or perhaps exactly as hard as she knew. I looked at her. Be careful. There's the voice. No. That is a warning from a woman who missed holidays, funerals, birthdays, and years of ordinary life doing work that funded this family. Do not use my absence to erase what it cost me to provide while I was gone. Brooke's face paled. I didn't mean, yes, you did. Doreen stepped into the driveway behind us but said nothing. I continued before restraint returned. Your father worked on this house. He made it beautiful. He also missed payments on it. He loved you. He also made promises using my money because he could not bear to look insufficient in your eyes. Both things are true. Loving him does not require me to lie about either one. Brooke glanced at Doreen. Doreen nodded once. That small agreement seemed to injure Brooke more than anything I had said. You believe her now, Brooke said. I believe facts, Doreen replied. Because she showed you a pile of invoices? Because I remember things differently after she gave me the dates. Of course you do. She's good at that. I stepped between them, not physically, but with my voice. This is not about convincing Doreen. Brooke looked at me. Everything has become your case against me. No, the rent ended. You got a job. You found a place. Your phone and insurance are yours. Those are not arguments. They are completed events. I had to sell Dad's watch. You chose the studio. I chose not to live with a stranger at 35. That choice had a price. Her eyes filled. I lost my apartment. You gave it up when you couldn't afford the renewal. My wedding is on hold because Marcus learned you weren't honest about money. I lost the watch because you used it to fund something you wanted. Each answer landed like a door locking. Brooke's voice broke. And none of that matters to you? The anger left me. It all matters. You don't act like it. What would acting like it look like? Paying the rent again? Giving you the house money? Buying the watch back? I don't know. Yes, you do. It always looks like me fixing the outcome. She wiped at her cheek with the heel of her hand. I thought you loved me. The words were quiet enough that Doreen looked away. I did, I said. Brooke stared at me. I heard the past tense and corrected myself. I do. But I spent years making love look like payment. That was my mistake. Dad didn't think it was a mistake. Your father is not here to keep making the promise. You promised him. I promised to help you get steady. I did not promise to spend the rest of my life proving I loved him by financing you. The garage, half empty behind us, seemed to hold its breath. I pointed toward the house. I loved being your family, Brooke. Not tolerating you, not fulfilling a duty to Tom. I loved you. But somewhere along the way, everything I did became evidence that I owed the next thing. The rent meant the phone. The phone meant the insurance. This house means the proceeds. Where does it stop? She looked toward the open garage. I don't know. It stops with me. Doreen picked up the bakery bag and coffee cups from the workbench. I'm going inside, she said. Neither of us answered. She disappeared through the kitchen door. Brooke sat on the tailgate of Tom's pickup. I remained standing. After a while, she said, when the rent showed up every month, it felt like Dad was still doing it. I did not speak. I knew the transfer had your name, she continued. I'm not stupid, but he had asked you, so it was still him in a way. The admission came haltingly, as though she had to drag each part into daylight. That apartment was the last place he saw me doing well. I had the hotel job. Marcus and I had just started talking about getting engaged. Dad fixed the door and complained about the pipes and said I'd landed on my feet. She looked down at her bare wrist. After he died, I lost the job. Then you started paying. As long as I stayed there and the rent came, I could pretend I hadn't fallen. He was still taking care of me. You could have told me. I didn't know I was doing it. That doesn't make it mine to continue. I know. It was the first time she had said those words without turning them into a weapon. I sat at the other end of the tailgate. She pressed her palms together. When you said the pension was yours, I heard that Dad had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with you, nothing to do with me. The pension is mine. I know. Your father was my family. That still doesn't make my service his. She nodded. I called it family money because... She stopped and rubbed her hands against her jeans. Because if it was yours, then you could stop. I looked at her. And you did, she said. Yes. Her mouth twisted. I thought that meant you were stopping everything. Everything what? Everything between us. You returned your key because you canceled me first. I canceled a bank transfer. To you, those were separate. Yes. She gave a small, miserable laugh. They weren't to me. I thought of all the ways I had taught her that money and care arrived together. Car repairs without conversation. Plane tickets purchased before she asked. Bills handled quietly, then forgotten. I had believed silence made generosity cleaner. Maybe silence had only hidden the edges. I should have made the terms clear and kept them, I said. I should not have let 6 months become 18. That sounds like you're apologizing for being too generous. I'm apologizing for teaching you the arrangement had no end. She looked at me. Are you sorry you helped me? No. Are you sorry Dad asked? No. Are you sorry you married him? I turned toward her. Never ask me that again. She nodded quickly, tears slipping free. I'm sorry. The words were small, but they were not followed by because. I let them remain what they were. After a minute, Brooke stood and returned to the garage. She picked up the blue travel mug she had asked about weeks earlier. The logo had worn away until only a white oval remained. Can I have this? Yes. She placed it in the box labeled Brooke. Then she lifted the cordless drill, looked at me, and set it in Keep. Which drawer next? She asked. I opened the one labeled Missy. Together, we began deciding what could be carried forward and what had already served its purpose. The MISC drawer contained 3 cabinet hinges, a deck of cards missing the Queen of Clubs, picture wire, 2 flashlight bulbs, the expired pancake coupon, a hotel sewing kit, 4 pencils sharpened with Tom's pocket knife, and 17 keys that opened nothing any of us could identify. Brooke held up the keys. He kept these on purpose? He believed every unidentified key was one memory away from becoming important. Doreen returned from the kitchen with the bakery bag. He got that from Dad, she said. Our father had a coffee can full of keys. Did any of them open anything? Brooke asked. No. But you weren't allowed to throw them away. Brooke put the keys in donate. Who donates mystery keys? I asked. Then trash. We don't have a trash box. She wrote trash on the side of the empty coffee carton and placed it beside the others. Your system had a gap. My system was designed before I knew we were inventorying nonsense. Doreen passed out bear claws. We ate standing in the garage, sugar sticking to our fingers. Brooke put the pancake coupon in her sweatshirt pocket. That expired 11 years ago, I said. I know. You just threw away 17 keys. The coupon has a picture of Dad's favorite pancakes. It's a stock photograph. I'm keeping it. I raised both hands. By early afternoon, the workbench held only what I planned to take. The cordless drill, 1 hammer, the carpenter's square, 2 clamps, Tom's labeled drawers, emptied of duplicates and rusted hardware. Brooke's box contained the travel mug, tape measure, small hammer, drill bits, pocket knife, and a pair of work gloves so worn that the fingertips had turned gray. Doreen claimed the recliner. I thought you hated that chair, Brooke said. I hate how it looks. It will look the same at your condo. Yes, but it will be Tom's ugly chair. I did not want it in the townhouse. The chair belonged to the room where he had watched westerns and slept through football games. Moving it felt like asking an old animal to survive one more relocation. Take it, I said. Doreen looked at me carefully. Are you sure? Yes. She nodded and did not ask again. Brooke followed me upstairs to the guest room. The cedar chest stood beneath the window, sunlight warming the lid. Tom had made it from boards he bought at an estate sale, then complained for 3 months that the wood was warped. Brooke ran her palm over the top. "You said he made this for you." "He did." "When?" "After my second deployment." She looked at me. "He started it while I was gone," I said. "He finished it 4 months after I got home because the hinges kept pulling out." From the doorway, Doreen said, "He called me 7 times about those hinges." I didn't know that. He blamed the manufacturer. He bought them from a yard sale. He left that part out. Brooke crouched and opened the lid. Inside were folded blankets, my dress uniform in a protective bag, several photo albums, and a box of letters Tom and I had written when I was overseas. She touched the plastic covering my uniform but did not lift it. "This stays with you," she said. Yes. There was no argument. That mattered more than if she had apologized again. Elaine's photographer came Wednesday. Brooke arrived before work and helped carry the extra dining chairs into the garage. She took family photographs off the refrigerator, wrapped them in newspaper, and labeled the box "Kitchen," personal without being asked. When the photographer moved Tom's picture from the buffet to improve the composition, Brooke looked at me. I nodded. She carried it into the bedroom and placed it on top of the cedar chest, beside my packed uniform. The listing went live Friday. The first open house brought wet footprints, a broken closet hanger, and 3 people who complained that the kitchen needed updating while standing beneath cabinets Tom had built by hand. I spent the afternoon at Arthur's house because Elaine said owners made buyers uncomfortable. Arthur watched strangers enter my home through his front window. "The man in the green shirt doesn't deserve it," he said. "He's been inside 30 seconds. Bad posture. You sold chemistry textbooks to students with bad posture. I was paid by the district." He made coffee and served store-bought cookies on a plate. At 4, Elaine called with 2 offers. One was too low, the other was below asking but reasonable, with no repairs requested beyond the gutter work I had already completed. I accepted it. When I told Brooke, she said, "That was fast." "Yes." "Are you okay?" It was the first question she had asked about the sale that did not contain a claim. "I don't know yet." That makes sense. She did not ask the price. The closing took 5 weeks. In that time, the house transformed from a home into a series of tasks: inspections, appraisals, packing tape, utility dates, address changes. Elaine sent documents faster than I could print them, so I stopped printing and signed electronically, which felt like surrendering civilization. Brooke came every Sunday. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we packed in separate rooms and communicated only through marker labels. She never arrived empty-handed. Coffee once, sandwiches another week, a roll of bubble wrap she had brought home from a hotel delivery. She did not ask for money from the sale. She did not ask me to pay for anything. She did ask whether she could have Tom's old red toolbox after all. "What changed?" I said. "My sink handle is loose." "You can tighten a sink handle without owning 19 pounds of tools." "I know. I thought maybe I could be the person who has tools before something breaks." I gave her the toolbox. The cordless drill stayed with me. Marcus joined us for the final moving weekend. He and Brooke arrived in separate cars. Her engagement ring remained on her hand, but there was no wedding date, and nobody pretended postponement was romantic. He carried boxes, disassembled the guest bed, and asked before taking anything. At lunch, he sat beside Brooke on the back steps. They talked quietly, not touching. After a while, Brooke handed him half her sandwich. He ate it. That was the only sign I saw that they might find their way forward. Doreen supervised the removal of Tom's recliner, as if directing surgery. "Don't tilt it." "It has to tilt," Marcus said. "The mechanism will fall out. The mechanism is bolted in." Tom said it was delicate. "Tom repaired it with a deck screw," I said. Doreen stared at the chair. Marcus looked underneath. "She's right." They carried it to Doreen's rented van, tilted. Naomi and Calvin came after work with packing tape and a hand truck from the warehouse. Calvin labeled one box, "Bedroom Misc." Then crossed out MISC before I could say anything. "I'm learning," he he said. Naomi wore earrings shaped like moving boxes. I suspected she had purchased them specifically to irritate me. You own earrings for every situation? I asked. Don't be ridiculous. I don't have funeral earrings. Doreen, passing behind us with a lamp, said, Tiny coffins would be inappropriate. Naomi considered it. Very. For several hours, the house was full again. Footsteps on the stairs, voices calling from rooms, somebody laughing in the garage. The sounds hurt, but not in the same place silence had hurt. When the truck was loaded, Arthur crossed the street carrying a small salvia plant in a plastic pot. For the new place, he said, I don't garden. You attacked weeds for 40 minutes in your pajamas. That was a dispute. Plant it near the patio. I took the pot. Arthur looked toward the house. I'm going to miss having somebody nearby who owns a ladder and ignores advice. You own a ladder. Yes, but I respect myself. He hugged me quickly, then stepped back before either of us had to discuss it. On closing morning, I walked through the empty rooms alone. The marks on the walls were visible where furniture had stood. The dining table was gone, but a shallow groove remained in the floor where Tom's chair had scraped backward every night. Upstairs, the guest room window framed the driveway where Brooke had stood in the rain asking for a bed. The garage smelled like dust and cut wood. The workbench was gone. Only the outline remained against the wall. I returned to the entry and picked up the ceramic bowl. 3 quarters, a Canadian dime, 2 screws, a bread clip, and Brooke's old house key. I held it in my palm. For months it had looked like rejection. Now it was simply a key to a lock that would belong to someone else by afternoon. I added it to the set for the buyers. The bowl went into my car. The townhouse near the river took 3 days to resemble a place where a person lived. The cedar chest fit beneath my bedroom window. Tom's photograph stood on a narrow table in the living room. I installed the smaller workbench in the garage and arranged the drill, hammer, square, and clamps above it. I planted Arthur's salvia beside the back patio. The river could not be seen through the summer leaves, but at night I heard water moving beyond the trees. Tom had been right about the mosquitoes. Brooke's first visit lasted 20 minutes. She brought the red toolbox and tightened a loose handle on one of the kitchen cabinets. This place came with repairs, she said. Every place does. You should ask for money back. I bought it as is. She tested the handle twice. Marcus and I started counseling, she said. All right, that's all. What response do you want? I don't know. Something supportive. I hope it helps. She smiled. That sounded painful. It was adequate. Before leaving, she put a spare key on the counter. I looked at it. For my studio, she said. Doreen has one too. In case something happens. You want me to keep it? Yes. I placed it in Tom's ceramic bowl. She noticed the quarters and bread clip. You moved the trash. It isn't trash. It's 3 quarters and a bread clip. It has history. She laughed. We did not suddenly become close. Trust returned like strength after an injury, uneven and unimpressive from day to day. Brooke called when nothing was due. She complained about the banquet chef. She asked whether compression sleeves came in black for a hotel guest and accepted my answer without requesting a discount. She sent $50 to Doreen every payday. When her car needed brakes, she told me after she had paid the mechanic, I learned not to turn every report of difficulty into an offer. That was harder than refusing the rent. One evening, 8 weeks after the move, Brooke came for dinner carrying 2 grocery bags. She set chicken, potatoes, lemons, and a bottle of wine on the counter. You bought too much, I said. I learned from Doreen. Dangerous. She removed an envelope from her purse and handed it to me. Inside was $40. What is this? My half of the concert tickets. I had purchased 2 tickets to an old soul singer we both liked. When I invited her, I had said the second seat was available. I had not asked her to pay. You don't owe me. I know. Then why? Because I want to go with you, not be taken. I looked at the money, then put it in the ceramic bowl. Fine. Don't sound so wounded. I had plans for that $40. New tolerance mug? This one has years left. We cooked together. Brooke cut the potatoes unevenly. I corrected her technique. She told me vegetables did not require military uniformity. I told her raw centers did not respect civilian freedom. At the table, Tom's photograph watched from the living room. We ate without making him the subject of every silence. After dinner, Brooke carried the plates to the sink. On her way back, she stopped beside the cedar chest, which was visible through the bedroom doorway. "Can I see something?" she asked. "What?" "Your uniform?" I opened the chest and lifted the protective bag. Beneath it lay the photo album Doreen had packed. Brooke took it to the couch. The first photograph showed me at 22, standing beside a transport truck with my sleeves rolled up and an expression severe enough to frighten my present self. "You smiled eventually, right?" Brooke asked. "Not until 1998. She turned the page. There were photographs from Germany, Kuwait, Georgia, Texas, promotion ceremonies she had never attended, people whose names she did not know. A picture of me sitting on a cot beside a small artificial Christmas tree, holding a paper plate and trying to look less tired than I was. Brooke touched the corner. "Was this the Christmas Dad flew to Chicago?" "Yes. You paid for that trip." "Yes." She looked at me. I waited for guilt, defense, or an argument about Tom. Instead, she asked, "What was it like for you over there?" Nobody in Tom's family had ever asked me that without quickly turning the answer into what my absence had been like for them. I sat beside her. "Which part?" She looked down at the photograph, then back at me. "The part the pension doesn't show." I opened the album to the beginning. "Start with the truck," I said. Brooke settled against the couch, listening.